Chapter 5:17. Brett slowly raised his head and looked at his honor. I won't. What if I order you? Subordinate will definitely not dare to go against his honor, but subordinate will commit suicide behind his honor's back. Brett's tone was filled with desolation. It seemed like his anger hadn't dissipated yet. Yihua decided to provoke Brett. I went to ask Ju Tian just now. He is still willing to marry you. Yihua said gravely. Just that, he discovered that Brett did not have any reaction at all. Could it be that he is immune to it? This subordinate will not be fooled again. Brett said indifferently, without the slightest fluctuation of emotion. It seemed that Brett had become more vigilant after being deceived by Shifeng and Absolute Heaven the last time. What if it's true? I have never lied to anyone. Even if it is true, this subordinate will not marry a man like Ju Tian. Yihong is 10,000 times better than him. Yihong, where are you? There's a fangirl here. Yihua blushed with shame. I didn't expect that Brett would compare Yihong to Ju Tian. And Yihong completely won against Ju Tian. Enough. You can go do what you need to do. However, let me tell you, Absolute Heaven is truly regretting his actions. Think about it. Give Absolute Heaven another chance. You can also be considered as giving yourself another chance. Hearing his honor's words, Brett didn't say anything and left with his head lowered. Yihua let out a heavy breath. Not only am I the matchmaker, I am also the peacemaker. Since when did I, the Supreme Overlord, start meddling in other people's business? I haven't eaten chili crayfish in a long time. I miss it a little. Coincidentally, my sister-in-law is at home. If a sister-in-law was not used to peel crayfish, then what was the point of having a sister-in-law? Get to know his sister-in-law's butt? In the blink of an eye, 3 days passed by, and Voidless Realm released the latest news. This news made the Northern Clan upset, and the Southern Clan happy. That was to distribute the longevity fruits in the form of a martial arts competition. Both the Northern and Southern clans could participate, but each clan could only send one contestant. Furthermore, only the top 10 clans would have the longevity fruits. In fact, in terms of quantity, there was no difference from before. In fact, there was even a little less. Other than letting people know about the longevity fruit, there was no change. Many clans in the south began to stir. The clans in the north began to raise their flags in protest. This was unfair. To begin with, this matter is only the matter of the north, so why are the southerners able to interfere in this matter? Furthermore, during the past 2 days, the commotion between the southerners and Voidless Realm has been getting more and more violent, to the point where they are just short of putting up a banner in front of Voidless Realm's gate to protest. Of course, this was all instigated by the other 4 aristocratic families. These longevity fruits had originally belonged to them, and now they had to give away even less than before. How infuriating! Now that only the 5 great families were left in the north, they naturally pushed aside the Dongfang family, not giving them any face at all. Furthermore, right now, the 4 family heads were all having a meeting, and the content of the meeting was precisely regarding Voidless Realm's attitude towards this matter. Yi Xiao of the Yi family had yet to find his son. Chu He of the Chu family. Duan Ho of the Duan family was an ugly woman. Jiang Yuanzhou of the Jiang family, his silly son, was not here. We should have gone to Voidless Realm together to protest. Isn't this just messing around? Jiang Yuanzhou slammed onto the table and shouted out. Duan Ho gently stroked her veil, and her slender fingers slid across the cup of water. For so many years, we have been at odds with the south. This time, Your Majesty has angered every family in the north. Yi Zhao's face sank as he said indifferently, What's done cannot be undone. Is there any other way? Chu He took a deep breath and did not say anything, because his son told him not to be greedy anymore, and to not get involved in the conspiracy of those people. Duan Ho picked up the teacup and lightly blew on it. Your Majesty has broken your promise to the entire north. I think it's time. Yi Xiao nodded his head, and Jiang Yuanzhou nodded his head as well. This is the rhythm of usurping the throne. Using the entire north to force you to step down. This is not a problem that can be solved with force. Chu He? Yi Xiao asked gravely. Right now, Chu He's mind was still recalling his son Chu Bai's words. Father, don't ever harbor any thoughts towards Voidless Realm. Those people are not people that we can afford to offend even if we were to work together. Chu family head. Duan-ho shouted out. Chu-hee came back to his senses, then looked at the three people in front of him and said gravely, "My Chu family does not wish to participate." Chu-hee's words caused the three people in front of him to go into a daze. "Chu-hee, what do you mean by that? Do you want to go and report us?" Jiang Yuanzhou questioned coldly. "Just now, you didn't say anything, and after listening to the meeting, you said that you don't want to participate." Chu-hee looked at the three people and said gravely, "You all can be at ease. I, Chu-hee, will definitely not go and secretly report you." "How can we believe your words?" Yi Xiao laughed. "We are all adults. Can you not be so childish?" "I, Chu-hee, dare to use my life to guarantee it." Duan-ho took off her veil, and the skin that was underneath the veil could be seen to be wrinkled, as if it was burnt by fire. "Chu-hee, it's already too late for you to get off the boat now. The four of us are already on the same boat. We were on the same boat in the past, and we are still on the same boat now. Chu-hee, you should understand what I mean, right?" Duan-ho's words caused Chu-hee's expression to become extremely gloomy. Duan-ho was reminding me of what happened back then. If this matter were to be leaked out, everyone would be done for. Jiang Yuanzhou stood up and walked to Chu-hee's side, then placed his hands on Chu-hee's shoulders and pressed him down. "Chu-hee, the four of us will either live or die together. How is it possible for you to escape by yourself?" Chu-hee's face was deathly pale. "These people are right. This boat is already on the same boat. How is it possible for me to get off?" Duan-ho said faintly, "All right, let's discuss on how to force the Empress to abdicate. If we want to force the Empress to abdicate, we must not use force. We are not her opponent at all," Yi Xiao said. Jiang Yuanzhou sat back on his seat. "We cannot use force. We can only use the wishes of the northern families to force the Empress to abdicate." Duan-ho nodded her head. "If the Southerners get all the benefits from the martial arts competition this time, the northern families will definitely not let the matter rest. I heard that Xiao Yi, Tang Wushuang, and Bai Cixin hate Voidless Realm to the bone. The enemy of my enemy is my friend." Yi Xiao drank a mouthful of water, and a faint killing intent could be heard from his tone. Duan-ho's eyes flickered with viciousness. This time, we must win." Helpless, Chu-hee stretched out his hand and made a kind of contract. "I feel that this time is 10,000 times more dangerous than the last time. If I don't succeed, then I will be dead meat. I should have listened to my son today. I shouldn't have come over. However, even if I don't come over, what can I do? After all, they will not let me off." And among the southern families, back then, when Ding family was exterminated, the other four families only brought their people to Ji family's house and left. Thus, they were able to escape from this calamity. Right now, they were discussing about the martial arts competition that was going to happen soon. Other than Ding family, who was completely exterminated. Chapter 5:18. The four of them sat together in a circle. Their expressions were not as solemn as before, and they seemed very relaxed. "This time, the Empress is showing mercy to us. The four of us will be able to get more of Voidless Realm specialties." Marshal Saint leaned on his chair, and both of his legs were even placed on the table. Diao Lang had his eyes closed, and was listening to music with his earphones on. "However," he said, "the South's overall strength has declined. Only our 4 clans and the 5 clans in the north have the strength to snatch it." "You are right. Right now, there is a wave of anti-Voidless Realm craze in the north. Empress, you are going to be very busy," He Tian said faintly while smoking a pipe of tobacco. Murongji laughed lightly. "Those aristocratic families in the north might start targeting Voidless Realm and topple Voidless Realm." "Bring down Voidless Realm? How is that possible? You all are thinking too much into it." Marshal Sage laughed. "Voidless Realm is such a powerful big shot, and you all want to bring down Voidless Realm? It was simply impossible." Diao Lang took off his earphones and placed them on the table. He looked at the three of them and said, "If it's to unite all the families in the north, that might not be the case." The other three nodded their heads. If he really had the ability to unite all the families in the north, that might really be the case. But what does that have to do with us? As long as we get the longevity fruits, Everything will be fine. The 4 patriarchs nodded their heads. What did the matters of the north have to do with them? The empress was really a good person. She even cared about the feelings of the entire south. It would be strange if the northern clans didn't rebel. Was this the same as shooting oneself in the foot? This was also what Yihua wanted. Yihua wanted to completely crush the pity in his wives' hearts. In this world, there are only benefits involved. Even if you treat the south so well, in the end, aren't you still being cheated? In the Wang family's villa in Gaohai City, Wang Debao and Bai Cixin were entertaining 4 distinguished guests. Heaven and Earth, Feng Tian, Feng Di who had recovered, and Xiao Yi. Act tough King Xiao. Qing Tiandi was still dressed lazily like a university graduate. Xiao Yi was called over by Bai Cixin today. The 2 families were considered allies in the north. Now that they were in the south together, they had to advance and retreat together. Xiao Yi, this is Qing Tian, this is Feng Tian, this is Feng Di. Bai Cixin introduced them with a smile while Wang Debao stood behind her. He didn't really approve of his wife's actions this time, because he couldn't see through this god raising heaven and earth, and that Feng Tian was also very strange. However, his wife insisted on cooperating. As her husband, how could he not agree? He only hoped that there wouldn't be any trouble. Xiao Yi stood up and faintly said, I, Xiao Yi, will never be someone's subordinate or hired thug. If the people from the space-time branch heard Xiao Yi's words, they would definitely fire him. How could he not act cool? Atlas smiled and said, Xiao Yi, we are a team. We help each other and cooperate. I just formed this team. Have you seen the Avengers? I am Captain America. You are all my teammates, not my subordinates. I like Thanos. Feng Di clenched his fists as if he wanted to snap his fingers. Heaven and Earth Pagoda smiled faintly and said, If we have more experts, then the combat power of the team will increase. Why did you gather so many people together? Xiao Yi asked curiously. Suddenly, Qing Tiandi's expression became very serious. The darkness is coming. We should be fully prepared to welcome the terrifying darkness. What? Wang Debao did not understand. What darkness is coming? I have only seen the invasion of darkness. It is scary. Heaven and Earth Pagoda's serious expression suddenly collapsed. You have seen the invasion of darkness? I have seen it too. Can't you be serious? Feng Di said in a deep voice. Sometimes he really could not stand this Heaven and Earth Pagoda. Heaven and Earth Pagoda coughed embarrassedly. His expression became serious again. In our world, there are many unknown factors. It is scary. Then you must have seen Silent Hill. Wang Debao suddenly interrupted. Heaven and Earth Pagoda's expression changed again. He smiled and said, Yeah, it feels good. The atmosphere is very good. Wang Debao, can you be quiet? Bai Cixin could not stand it anymore. Why did all the experts have such a hobby? Heaven and Earth Pagoda smiled at Wang Debao. It seemed like he was saying, Let's discuss the movie later. Maybe one of them will win an award. Heaven and Earth Pagoda's expression darkened again. Our world is at the center of the universe's accident. Rebirth, time travel, all kinds of things. I believe that none of you are local, right? Maybe you are from another world. For example, the Emperor Immortal. Xiao Yi was shocked. How did this man know about him? I also know that you are working for the Time Branch. Heaven and Earth Pagoda's words shocked everyone. Bai Cixin asked in a deep voice, What is the Time Branch? It is to catch those people who have been reborn and time traveled, Heaven and Earth Pagoda said. Feng Di and Feng Tian were not from Earth, but it was their first time hearing about the Time Branch. Miss Bai, do you have egg tarts here? Heaven and Earth Pagoda asked curiously. Bai Cixin was a little depressed too. I will order one for your Meituan. Me too. Feng Di raised his hand. Wang Debao touched his nose. I will order beef meatballs and spaghetti. Bai Cixin was speechless. They might as well eat. Xiao Yi, what about you? I will order a chaos. Bai Cixin looked at Feng Tian. What do you want to eat? A hamburger combo. I don't want Coke, I want Sprite. Bai Cixin felt dizzy. What was wrong with these people? Mr. Qing, please continue. Bai Cixin continued to ask after she bought the food. It seemed that she needed to learn more. Heaven and Earth Pagoda nodded. His face darkened again. The darkness before dawn is coming. This time, there will be terrifying rebirths and time travelers. So, I want to gather everyone to work together and protect our home. Are we getting paid? Wang Debao asked curiously. Heaven and Earth Pagoda paused. He stood up and clenched his fists. How can we talk about money? This is a great thing. We will be like the Avengers and fight against the alien invasion. Sorry, I don't have time to save the world with you. Xiao Yi's face turned cold. He stood up and prepared to leave. Heaven and Earth Pagoda slowly leaned on the sofa. You have forgotten about killing your wife so quickly? Xiao Yi stopped and slowly turned to look at Heaven and Earth. What do you mean? I mean it literally. Evil is everywhere. We should eradicate evil and bring justice to the world. Ding dong ding dong. Chapter 519. Wang Debao went out and brought all the food in. He placed them on the table and continued to listen. This egg tart is not bad. Which shop did you buy it from? Qing Tiandi asked curiously. If Mr. Qing likes it, I can send it to you every day. Thank you, Miss Bai. Tiandi smiled. Why did he look like a CX leader? Feng Tian asked. Qing Tiandi, now that you've eaten, can you speak now? Have you heard of the 5-year cycle? Tiandi took out a napkin and wiped his mouth, then folded the napkin and put it aside. Everyone shook their heads. I'll have to start from a long time ago. You won't understand even if I tell you. Anyway, every 5 years, there will be terrifying reincarnators and transmigrators, and these 5 years are about to arrive. Xiao Yi sat down and asked, what happened in the last 5 years? Haven't you already met it? Tiandi asked. This caused Xiao Yi's expression to change, and his chest to rise and fall violently. Who the hell was this Qing Tian? How did he know so many things? It was impossible to guess. At this point, Qing Tiandi's expression sank as if he wanted to say something. Wang Debao looked at the egg tart in front of Qing Tian and asked, Mr. Qing Tian, do you still want to eat the egg tart? Qing Tiandi's face fell and he smiled. Of course. After saying that, he swallowed it in one gulp, as if he would fight with anyone who wanted to snatch it from him. However, everyone looked at Wang Debao. I dare you to say that again. I'll kill you. Everyone watched as Qing Tian wiped his mouth and folded the napkin. His nerves were about to explode. Could he be a little more forceful? Stop dragging it out. Where was I? Tiandi looked at everyone and asked curiously. Bai Cixin squeezed out a smile and said, Mr. Qing, you're going to say that the 5-year round is coming. That's right, I'm going to talk about this. Qing Tian's face darkened, and everyone felt a little unnatural when they saw his expression. They were afraid that he would laugh again. I've calculated it. Next year. This year is going to be the most terrifying one. I'm afraid the strongest person in history will appear this time. Wang Debao swallowed his saliva, then said with a smile, About that, everyone has already eaten their fill. Let's disperse, let's disperse. Feng Tian had the urge to pinch this heaven and earth pillar to death. He questioned coldly, What are you trying to say? Tiandi smiled and said, Although the enemies are fierce, the treasures they brought are unimaginable. What is an ancient godly item? What was an ancient divine artifact? Even if it's an ancient godly item, it's nothing. You should know that the greater the risk, the greater the reward. Everyone finally understood. This was what it meant to form a party to fight monsters. In fact, they could even gain a good reputation. That felt pretty good. With so many of us together, plus Xiao Yi's internal information, do you think we won't be able to catch those transmigrators? Tiandi looked at Xiao Yi with a knowing smile. Indeed, Xiao Yi also knew that some of the reincarnators were very strong. Even the Bureau didn't do anything. If they gathered more strong reincarnators, they could snatch those people. That would be a great harvest. I will join, Xiao Yi said gravely. Using the convenience of his position to earn some extra money seemed pretty good. He could even escape from the control of time and space branch. Bai Cixin said gravely, I will join as well. Seeing that even his wife had joined, what else could Wang Debao say? I will join. Tian Tiandi looked at Feng Tian and Feng Di. Feng Tian was the main fighter, he couldn't be missing. How are we going to split it? Feng Tian asked. Tian Tiandi said faintly, those who put in more effort will naturally get more points. I will make an evaluation report for every battle, don't worry. Alright, let's find someone to test our strength first. Let's see if your evaluation report is reliable or not. Tian Tiandi nodded his head. Of course, Xiao Yi, you can choose a target first. Tang family. Tang Wushuang. Xiao Yi said coldly. This was obviously using his position to take revenge on a personal grudge. Alright, this was using his position to take revenge on a personal grudge. Xiao Yi wanted Tang Wushuang dead. Thoroughly dead. Wang Debao and Bai Cixin knew that there was enmity between them, but they didn't say anything. In any case, this was just a test to see if the evaluation report was accurate or not. Meanwhile, Tian Tiandi smiled and didn't say anything, his attitude was completely indifferent. Tang Wushuang it shall be then. Feng Tian said gravely, and he had already begun rubbing his palms together. Tian Tiandi smiled lightly. Let's do it tonight then. Everyone should have time. If you want to work overtime, you can apply for leave. Everyone laughed lightly. Evidently, they didn't want to play this kind of joke with Tian Tiandi, because it wasn't funny at all. Xiao Yi's gaze was filled with excitement. I didn't expect that there would be such an unexpected harvest this time. Tang Wushuang. You betrayed me. Don't blame me for being ruthless then. Yi Hua had been staying in Voidless Realm for the past few days. On one hand, the air in Voidless Realm was not bad, and on the other hand, Yi Hua would accompany his wife and child. At night, he would sleep here and there. Tonight, it was the Empress's turn to serve Yi Hua in the bed again. Yi Hua displayed his masculinity as a man, and he only stopped after the Empress begged for forgiveness. Those who go against me can only beg for forgiveness. While hugging onto the Empress who had already fainted, Yi Hua felt very comfortable. Smelling the fragrance of Donghuang Baiji's hair and the trace of sweat, Yi Hua gradually fell asleep. Not knowing how long Yi Hua slept for, he heard knocking sounds coming from outside of his door. Yi Hua heard that it was Qingya who was knocking on his door. Yi Hua, go and open the door. Donghuang Baiji said lazily. Every time after she finished serving her husband, she would want to lie on the bed and spend the next day feeling as if her entire body was floating. Yi Hua rubbed his hands, and the door opened by itself. Qingya walked into the room with an anxious look on her face. Why are you two still sleeping? It's already 10 a.m. Ali has already finished her morning class. Yi Hua carried Qingya onto the bed, then quickly carried his two wives into his embrace. Finally, half of his wish was fulfilled. Yi Hua, stop messing around, something happened. That group of people came out again. Qingya said gravely. Yi Hua was a bit puzzled. Wasn't that group of people being targeted by Brett? Didn't Yi Hua arrange for that group of people? Donghuang Baiji asked tenderly. Qingya shook her head. It's that group of people. They are the ones who exterminated the Southern Sex and Ding family back then. Yi Hua. How is that possible? Didn't we defeat that person back then? Didn't he say that he wouldn't appear again? Donghuang Baiji immediately sat up. Qingya let out a breath. Last night, Tang family was exterminated. Which Tang family? Yi Hua asked curiously. Tang Wushuang. Qingya said. Donghuang Baiji's brows wrinkled. This Tang Wushuang's strength is not bad. How did he get killed? Chapter 520. A trace of doubt appeared on Yi Hua's face. In my impression, Tang Wushuang is a man who has a lot of wives. All of them were exterminated? Yi Hua asked. Qingya nodded her head calmly. And all of them. The Cultivation World's forum exploded. Everyone is discussing this matter. Did that group of people appear again? Yi Hua was sure that it wasn't done by his own people, but the person who did it was even more inhumane than the Supreme Overlord himself. I will go and ask about the situation, you all be careful. Yi Hua said faintly, then disappeared from the bed. Returning back to the bedroom of the bar, Yi Hua took a shower and changed into a clean black suit. The collar of the suit was slightly open, and the suit gave off a trace of untamed feeling. Brett. Yi Hua called out faintly. Brett's figure slowly appeared and said respectfully, "Subordinate pays respect to your honor." "Did those people take action last night?" Yihua leaned against the window and looked towards the hot pot restaurant that was not far away. "They did." "Was Tang family exterminated by them?" Brett said faintly, "They indeed exterminated a family last night, and it should be the Tang family that your honor mentioned." "Reason?" Yihua took a puff of his cigarette. "It really is that group of people," Brett said gravely, "for the evaluation test." "Evaluation test?" Yihua turned his head and looked towards Brett. "Yes, subordinate heard about it yesterday. They said that there will be a cycle of 5 years, and next year will be the start of the cycle of 5 years. There will be a lot of reincarnated experts that will appear, so they are planning to form a group to rob those experts." Brett's words caused Yihua to wrinkle his brows. "A cycle of 5 years? My appearance seems to be at this time, which means that after these 5 years, there will be even more powerful experts that will appear? Interesting." "Who are they?" Yihua asked gravely. "Qing Tiandi, Feng Tian, Feng Di, Xiao Yi, Bai Cixin, Wang Debao. They are currently recruiting a large number of experts and are planning to form a group." "Xiao Yi," Yihua muttered. "I really didn't expect that this Xiao Yi would actually appear again. And he even changed his master." "Your honor, this Xiao Yi is currently still a field member of Time and Space Branch," Brett added. Yihua was a bit surprised, and an unexpected smile appeared on the corner of his mouth. "If I didn't remember wrongly, Blue Blaze Planet is Time and Space Branch, right?" "Of course, Time and Space Branch controls the laws of the entire Milky Way galaxy, and Time and Space Branch controls the entire galaxy. Earth is one." "I see, Time and Space Branch control the entire galaxy. Of galaxy. They have a complete system. They will slowly observe those who are strong, and will not make a move on their own. As for the weaker ones, they will send field personnel to subdue them," Yi Futian said. Of Hua said. Of Yi of the Hua. Of Yi. Yi of Hua said. Yi of. Yi. Yi of Hua. Wei of Xiao of the. Of Liang. Wei. That is because your honor is magnanimous. Yi. Of Hua of the Supreme Tian of Yi. No need, you just have to continue watching over them. I want to see what else they can do. In actuality, Yihua didn't want Wei to take action. Instead, he wanted Qingye to take action. After all, back then, Qingye pleaded for leniency for Xiao Yi. This subordinate obeys. Yihua was very satisfied with his subordinate's attitude. Zhu Tian said. Your honor, Zhu Tian is no longer related to subordinate. Subordinate pleads with your honor to not mention him anymore. Forget it, I will not mention him anymore. Yihua shook his head. Wei is determined to not reconcile with Zhu Tian. Thank you for your understanding, your honor. Go, don't tire yourself out. Yes. Seeing that Wei had disappeared, Yihua lit up another stick of cigarette. Just what is this group of people trying to do? Their goal is definitely not that simple. That heaven and earth is a bit interesting. I hope that you can give me a pleasant surprise. Don't be too weak. Right now, I have to tell this good news to Qingye. This is truly an exciting good news. Returning back to Voidless Realm, Yihua gathered his two wives and told them everything that he knew. As expected, Qingye's expression was extremely black. Even if you beat her to death, I would never have thought that Xiao Yi would also be involved in this matter. In the past, I thought that Xiao Yi was a pitiful person, which was why he had a conflict with Yihua. However, I didn't expect that Xiao Yi was actually this kind of scum, exterminating his entire family. Donghuang Baiji's slender index finger tapped on the table rhythmically. Exterminating Tang family just for the sake of testing and evaluation. This statement is truly outrageous. Yihua nodded his head. It is indeed outrageous. I hate this kind of people the most. Qingye took a look at her husband apologetically, deeply expressing her apology. I shouldn't have treated you like that. Receiving Qingye's guilty gaze, Yihua's entire body felt comfortable. How are the two of you going to deal with this matter? After all, this matter was discovered in the south, and the two of you have no reason to interfere in this matter. Yihua was very curious about what his two wives were planning to do. Yihua hoped that the two of them would be decisive in killing, and not have the thought of being soft-hearted. This kind of people will take action sooner or later. It is only a matter of time. Donghuang Baiji said gravely, I will consider it properly. Qingye lowered her head and remained silent. All right, if you don't want to do it, I can do it. Yihua said faintly. In actuality, he didn't want to dirty his wife's hands. Qingye said gravely, Yihua, leave this matter to us. Yihua laughed lightly. All right, I won't bother with this matter then. I will only provide you with information. After finished speaking, Yihua didn't disturb his two wives' discussion and walked over to accompany his daughter. Meanwhile, Dong Huangli was also very happy. Daddy was able to accompany me for a day, and for the entire day, Dong Huangli brought her father to walk around the entire voidless realm. Little Ali's laughter could be heard everywhere, and when the people from Voidless Realm saw how happy their little highness was, they also laughed along with Ali. If they were to know that Yihua was the person who instigated the Voidless Realm, it was unknown if they would still be smiling. After all, a lot of people's loved ones had died in that battle. At night, Qingye personally cooked a sumptuous dinner to reward her husband. Yihua naturally knew what his wife was trying to do. His hard work and conscience didn't go to waste, and he felt gratified. However, right after Yihua finished eating, Qingye pulled Yihua into her bedroom, then pushed Yihua onto the bed without saying a word. Yihua was dumbfounded by Qingye's actions. Today, Qingye is very proactive. In fact, she is very energetic. In the past, I would only passively enjoy it, but tonight, she actually changed from defending to attacking. This made Yihua become a lying corpse, and he could only watch as Qingye tried her best to please him. After a long while, Yihua hugged onto Qingye tightly and asked, What happened tonight? Chapter 521. In Yihua's impression, Qingye was a woman who was soft on the outside but hard on the inside. In the past, whenever he angered Qingye would never shed a tear, and today, she actually cried. The main body was a little flustered. Lightly turning his wife around, Qingye could see that Qingye's beautiful face was covered with tears, as if she had suffered a huge grievance. Her pair of beautiful eyes were completely red. This caused Yihua's heart to ache to death. At the same time, Yihua was also very angry. Which scoundrel actually wronged my wife to such an extent? All right, don't cry. Yihua consoled with a calm face. Yihua, I'm sorry, it's all my fault. Qingye couldn't help but start bawling loudly. For the sake of a person like Yihua, falling out with my husband is really not worth it. What if my husband were to divorce me at that time? Fortunately, Yihua didn't pursue this matter. Thinking about this matter, Qingye was regretting to the point that her intestines turned green. Yihua treated me so well, and yet, I treated my husband in such a manner and spoke coldly to him. Yihua was wondering what was going on, but it turned out that it was because of that damn Xiao Yi. Alright, you can't be blamed entirely for this. You have just come into contact with this world not too long ago, and it is inevitable that you would be taken advantage of by some people with ulterior motives. Yihua lightly caressed Qingye and consoled her. Qingye nestled in Yihua's embrace and cried out, Yihua, I regret it so much, I'm sorry. I'm not a good wife. Hearing Qingye's words, Yihua was a bit moved. Am I being too strict with them? Foolish woman, you are my Yihua's wife in this lifetime. Although you have done a lot of foolish things in the past, I will not blame you. Only a person with extremely thick skin would be able to say something like this. However, Yihua said it confidently. More importantly, Qingye felt that what her husband said was very reasonable. Yihua, thank you for treating me so well. Now you know that I'm good to you. I asked you to sleep with Baiji, but you still didn't agree. This makes me very sad. Seizing the opportunity was the king. If he didn't ask for it now, when would he? Right now, Qingye was feeling incomparably guilty. Of course, this was the best time for her to do so. I promise you, as long as Baiji is willing. Yihua was feeling great in his heart. Right now, I have already dealt with one of them, and only the Empress is left. The day where I will be able to have two beauties in my arms is not far away. He secretly imagined that kind of scene. It would definitely be extremely exciting. Qinya, as your husband, I am very happy that you have this kind of awareness. Don't think too much, just go and sleep. Yihua kissed onto the forehead of his wife and hugged onto her tightly. Feeling her husband's warmth, Qinya nodded and leaned into the warmest embrace in the world. 1 hour. 2 hours, Qinya slowly opened her beautiful eyes and looked at her husband who was sleeping soundly. Stretching out her hand, she lightly caressed Yihua's face and muttered, Yihua, you have done too much for us. As your wife, I am truly ashamed that I am unable to help you. If you are a demon, I am willing to accompany you to the end. Qinya took a deep breath, then stealthily kissed Yihua's lips. After that, she lightly left her husband's embrace, got onto the bed, took a look at her husband who was lying on the bed, then disappeared from the bedroom. Meanwhile, the corner of Yihua who was sleeping soundly on the bed revealed a trace of an arc. It is truly not easy to lead a wife astray. Gaohai City. Nanny number 3 was a group of villas that the rich and celebrities lived in. Looking from the outside, the inside seemed to be very low-key, but if one were to enter the villa, one would be stupefied by those expensive luxuries. The moment Xiao Yi came from the north, he bought the villa here. The villa that was 800 square meters was worth 200 million. It could be seen that the villas here were not something that ordinary people could afford. In the garden outside of the villa, Xiaoyi was currently teaching his son Xiaoyin how to play with the ball. And when Xiaoyin saw that his father was so amazing, his little palm kept on slapping the ball. At the pavilion at the side, Shunan and Yuqi, who had a big belly, were sitting there, watching the father and son playing with each other with a smile on their faces. Dad, why did you become so good at football? Xiaoyin caught the football that his father brought over, and asked while grinning. Xiaoyi revealed out a loving smile and patted onto his son's head. Only when I play football well will there be girls who like me. Then, is it because of this that mommy likes daddy? Xiaoyin asked. Xiaoyi smiled and nodded his head. Yes, back then, your mommy was captivated by daddy's figure. Daddy, then when is mommy coming back? She has already gone on a business trip for so long. Xiaoyin pouted his little mouth. He really missed his mother. Soon daddy will come back and bring mommy back very soon. Xiaoyi's gaze revealed out a determined look. It is just a matter of time before I obtain the items that I need to revive Nangong Cini, and I will be able to revive Nangong Cini very soon. Xiaoyin nodded his head. And Yin'er believes in daddy. Alright, quickly go and sleep, you still have to go to school tomorrow. Alright. Xiaoyin skipped and ran upstairs, while Xiaoyi sat in between his two wives. Xiaoyi picked up the wanglaji that was on the table and drank a mouthful of it, then let out a deep breath. Shunan felt that her husband was hiding something from her. He had been a bit mysterious these past 2 days. Yuqi, who was at the side, also seemed to have the same thought. The two of you should rest early. Xiaoyi let out a breath once again. Shunan couldn't help but ask, Brother Xiao, are you hiding something from us? Xiaoyi, who stood up, paused for a moment, then revealed a smile on his face. How could that be? There is nothing that I am hiding from you two. The pressure from work has been a bit big recently, that's all. After being husband and wife for so many years, how could they not be able to tell that their husband was hiding something from them? However, if her husband didn't say what he could do, it was definitely because he didn't want them to worry. It was precisely because of this that Shunan and Yuqi were endlessly worried. Meanwhile, Yuqi rubbed her stomach. It's going to be the due date soon. I hope that nothing unexpected will happen. Brother Xiao, can't we just live a normal life? Don't get involved in those things anymore. Yuqi didn't care about Shunan's gaze and spoke out to persuade Xiaoyi. From Yuqi's point of view, she just wanted her family to live a normal life together. She didn't want to not be able to wait for her husband to come back home one day. And she didn't want to hear the news of misfortune. This kind of fear lingered in Yuqi's mind. And if not for Shunan accompanying her, she might have already suffered from depression. Xiaoyi looked at Yuqi and the child in her stomach, and a struggle could be seen in his gaze. Normal life? I might not be able to live an ordinary life in this life. I have already fallen deeply into it, and I can no longer jump out. Not to mention, ordinary life. There are a lot of hatred waiting for me to take revenge. As an immortal emperor, How can I tolerate others trampling on my head? These people are just my springboard. In the future, when I rise to power, I will make the entire world tremble under my feet. And I will make Voidless Realm pay a painful price. The humiliation I suffered back then, I will return it to you all with interest. Yuchie. Chapter 522. Xiao Yi and the others looked at the figure that suddenly appeared with deep doubt in their eyes. Xiao Qing. Shunan shouted out confusedly. Qingya's beautiful eyes stared fixedly at Xiao Yi. Back then, I felt that Xiao Yi was pitiful because he got into a conflict with Yi Hua. However, I didn't expect that Xiao Yi's nature would be so vile that he actually massacred the entire Tang family. Even those defenseless women were slaughtered without exception. Yet, I blame Yi Hua for being ruthless because of such a person. Qingya, you really shouldn't have. Qingya slowly stretched out her right hand, and the golden Xian Yuan sword appeared in her hand, emitting a dazzling radiance. Today, Qingya and Donghuang Baiji had come to an agreement. This matter is my fault, and thus, I will be the one to resolve this matter. Qingya pulled Yi Hua to sleep early in the morning, and wanted to sneak out of the room, doing some things that should have been done by me. I can't let my husband keep doing it. As a wife, I have the obligation to help my husband settle some of the dirty work. This time, Xiao Yi must die. If not, I would be letting Yi Hua down. He couldn't get over the hurdle in his heart. What's more, Xiao Yi did something like this, so he should be killed. Facing Qingya's attack, Xiao Yi and the others' expressions changed. Especially Xiao Yi. Seeing his Xian Yuan sword in someone else's hand, he didn't know what to feel. Furthermore, this Qingya's relationship with the Empress seems to be pretty good. And she's also that boss's woman. What exactly is her intention in coming over this time? Were they going to kill him? Shunan hurriedly stood up and asked, Xiao Qing, this is? Is there some misunderstanding between us? Qingya said in a deep voice, Shunan Yuqi, please step back. Qingya didn't want these two women to see such a scene, in case they couldn't stand it. As a woman, Qingya understood. But today he would not be soft-hearted. Absolutely not. CEO Qing, if there's anything we can talk about it. Shunan said anxiously with a pleading tone. Her husband must have done something big outside. Otherwise, it was impossible for him to come looking for them. Shunan, there's nothing to talk about. Your husband destroyed the entire Tang family yesterday. Qingya's words made Xiao Yi's expression sink. How did she know? When Shunan and Yuqi heard this, they immediately felt dizzy. Their husband had killed his brother's entire family. In actuality, the two women had also heard about what happened today, and they had even suspected whether or not it was their husband who did it. However, when they thought that their husband didn't have the Xian Yuan sword anymore, they thought that it shouldn't be that easy for him to kill Tang Wushuang. And they didn't expect that it was really their husband who did it. This is simply unimaginable. Even if you have a grudge, it should be against Tang Wushuang. Why don't you even let off those women? This was something that Shunan and Yuqi didn't expect. In the past, we were all good friends. After all, Xiao Yi wasn't this kind of person in the past. However, Xiao Yi had experienced too much recently. After so many things, Xiao Yi's entire personality had changed. He was no longer the Xiao Yi of the past. CEO Qing, is there really no way to save it? Shunan felt that her entire body had no strength. She clearly wanted her husband's life. Qingya heaved a sigh of relief and said faintly, I will ensure your safety after this. Xiao Yi's face was gloomy, and he had not said a single word since the start. Right now, he was currently trying to determine if he had the ability to kill the opponent, and the answer was still unclear. Shunan didn't have any other choice and could only plead towards Qingya. Qingya, for the sake of our child, please spare Brother Xiao for this moment. Just like last time. Use my life to exchange for Brother Zhao's life. Yuqi also kneeled down. CEO Qing, my child is going to be born soon. I don't want her to lose her father the moment she makes a sound. I beg of you. I will kowtow to you right here. As a pregnant woman as well. How could Qingya not know how Yuqi felt? During those few days when Yi Hua wasn't by her side, even she herself felt suffocated, let alone someone like Yuqi. Xiao Yi, are you still a man or not? To actually ask your wife to plead for you. Qinya shouted out toward Xiao Yi. This man actually didn't budge at all, causing Qinya to be even more disappointed. Xiao Yi looked at Qinya and said slowly, Xiao Qing, have I Xiao ever wronged you? Are you going to exterminate me like this? I believe that yesterday night, Tang Wushuang also said the same thing to you. And what about you guys? Xiao Yi, I had originally thought that you were a man with a sense of responsibility, but in actuality, I was thinking too much. Xiao Yi laughed lightly. Seems like tonight won't be so easy to pass by. Ah. Yu Qi suddenly held onto her stomach, her face filled with pain. Shu Nan hurriedly ran over to take a look, and immediately saw that Yu Qi looked like she was about to give birth. Her water had even broken. This kind of situation was something that Qinya didn't expect. Qinya, can I watch my daughter being born? Xiao Yi said gravely. Qinya pondered for a while, then nodded her head. This kind of request isn't too much. Xiao Yi hurriedly carried Yu Qi and went upstairs, while Shu Nan hurriedly went to call other people to help. Qinya didn't enter the house, she stood in the garden and waited. This is the first time I'm doing this kind of thing. It's really hard to get used to it. On the second floor of the villa, Xiao Yi stood outside the door with his brows tightly wrinkled. His wife's painful shouts could be heard from inside the room, and his heart sunk to the bottom. At this moment, Xiao Yi recalled the scene when he met them when he had just reincarnated. During that time, there were both happiness and sadness. After going through all the ups and downs, the powerful Xiao family was created, but because of a gamble, the curtains fell. Is this my life? This emperor's life isn't controlled by the heavens. My life is controlled by my own hands. But along with the sound of a baby crying, Xiao Yi's muddy eyes suddenly became clear. This newborn baby seemed to have awakened the conscience in Xiao Yi's heart, causing him to instantly sober up. Xiao Yin, who was inside the house, walked out. Looking at his father, who was in a daze, Xiao Yin held onto his father's hand. Dad, is little sister born? Xiao Yi looked at his son, who was in front of him, and listened to the crying sound in the room. At this moment, Xiao Yi's heart was filled with puzzlement. What exactly did I do all of this for? Was it for becoming stronger? Or was it for letting them live a better life? At this moment, Xiao Yi was unable to determine his original intention. Dad. Xiao Yin shook onto his father's hand again, and asked with a questioning look in his eyes. Xiao Yi carried his son up and lightly tidied up his son's hair. Yin, you are a boy. Dad, I know. As a boy, I have to take good care of everyone in the family. Yin, will always remember this. Xiao Yin appeared to be very sensible. Yin'er is so obedient. In the future, the responsibility on Yin'er's shoulders will be even bigger. Xiao Yi said with a slight smile on his face. At this moment, Xiao Yi seemed to have understood something. Powerful strength, unprecedented authority. None of those can compare to the warmth of a family. Yin'er, in the future, you will become a man that can make Dad proud. Xiao Yi was amused by his son's words. You brat, you are already calling yourself a man at such a young age. Chapter 523. Yin'er is now the little man of the family, and in the future, you still have to take care of your little sister. Quickly go back and sleep, study well, and come and see your little sister tomorrow. After speaking, Xiao Yi placed his son down. Xiao Yin nodded his head, then turned his head back to look at his father every 3 steps, then walked into the room. Looking at his son's little back, Xiao Yi felt that this was the last time he would see his son. Humans, when they do something wrong, they have to take responsibility. This is something that cannot be avoided. Even if they temporarily avoid it, it will still appear again in the future. It's not that I won't take revenge, it's just that it's not time yet. After taking a deep breath, Xiao Yi pushed open the door and walked into the bedroom. Looking at his wives, Yu Qi was weakly lying on the bed, and Shu Nan was hugging their newborn daughter. Xiao Yi let out a breath, then revealed a smile and laughed loudly. Let me take a look at our family's little princess. Shu Nan carefully placed the baby in her embrace onto her husband's hands. Her face was filled with hesitation and confusion. Xiao Yi lowered his head and looked at his daughter. Her hands were moving back and forth, and her mouth was mumbling, looking exactly the same as when his son was born. Xiao Yi couldn't help but reveal a trace of a smile. Brother Xiao, give your daughter a name. Yu Qi, who was lying on the bed, said weakly. Sweat had drenched her soft hair, making her look very delicate. Xiao Yi nodded his head, then said with a smile, let's call her Xiao Nian. Xiao Nian, Xu Nan, and Yu Qi's beautiful faces were filled with despair. Although their husband did something that angered even the gods, but in the end, he was still their husband. Xu Nan, in the future, the family will be relying on you. Xiao Yi said with a smile, then gently placed his daughter into his wife's embrace. Unexpectedly, his daughter grabbed onto his finger. Although she didn't use much strength, it was still a sign of something. At this moment, Xiao Yi's heart was collapsing. People only know how to cherish when they lose something. He had already lost Cinny, but he didn't understand the true meaning of it, and was walking step by step towards the abyss, unable to return. Lightly breaking away from his daughter's hand, Xiao Nian seemed to have felt that his father was about to leave him, and he immediately started crying. Looking at his life's loves, Xiao Yi's breathing became a bit hurried. Perhaps, I should have died last time. Life. This is life. I'm sorry. Xiao Yi took one last deep look at his wives, carving their faces into every cell in his body. If there is a next life, I will live a good life with them, but in this life, I will have to let them down. After saying this, Xiao Yi turned around and left, then set up a barrier. Brother Xiao. Xu Nan and Yu Qi screamed miserably. Yu Qi even fell off the bed. She crawled to the door and knocked on the barrier. Xiao Yi stood at the door and gasped for breath. I didn't expect that this kind of farewell would be so painful. When did I become such a person? To lose myself. After taking a few deep breaths, Xiao Yi walked downstairs to the garden. Qinya said faintly, change to another place? Okay. Xiao Yi nodded. The two of them disappeared into the garden. Next to the window on the second floor, Xiao Yi's wives looked at their man's disappearing figure and cried. Next to a small window, Xiao Yan also looked at his father's disappearing figure, and thought that his father had gone out to work again. He didn't know if he would come home tomorrow. Qinya and Xiao Yi arrived at a desolate and uninhabited mountain area. The two of them stood opposite to each other. Qinya's beautiful face was covered with a layer of frost, while Xiao Yi's gaze was calm, seemingly intending to resist. Come on. If you want to take my, Xiao Yi's life, let's see if you have the strength to do so. Suddenly, Xiao Yi let out a strong spiritual pressure. This spiritual pressure was even stronger than the previous Xiao Yi. The spiritual pressure engulfed the surrounding trees, causing them to start swaying crazily. Qinya held on to Xianyuan's sword and revealed a firm look. Xiao Yi, you only have yourself to blame for this. Ha ha ha, I Xiao Yi will never regret what I have done. Xiao Yi, who was in a frenzy, his aura rose by a bit, the muscles all over his body started bulging, and his huge fists started flickering with golden light. Soon after, Xiao Yi punched out. This punch burst out with an ear-piercing sonic boom. The aura was surging violently, everything in the surroundings seemed to have frozen, becoming the embellishment of this punch. Qinya's beautiful eyes narrowed, without a trace of pity. Xianyuan's sword that was in her hand shone with golden light, immediately lighting up the darkness of the night. A strong sword chi suddenly emitted out, and Xianyuan's sword fiercely stabbed out. An invisible sword chi that brought along a terrifying might struck toward Xiao Yi. Bang! At this moment, time seemed to have stopped. Xiao Yi's fist stopped in front of Qinya. The autumn breeze was a bit cold, blowing on the two of them. Xiao Yi laughed and slowly stood up. Why didn't you dodge? Qinya asked in a low voice. Xiao Yi didn't explain. He looked up at the starry sky. Xiao Qing. Do the words you said before still count? Qinya nodded her head. The words she said before naturally count. I, Xiao Yi, have a lot of enemies. Now I just want to use my life to exchange for their safety, to live a peaceful life. If you knew this would happen, you wouldn't have done it in the first place. Qinya said slowly. This could be counted as Xiao Yi's last words before he died. Xiao Yi smiled faintly. This is the path I chose, a path I can't turn back on. I can't blame others. After hearing this, Qinya didn't say anything. The path is chosen by oneself, then one must bear the responsibility. I am a bit happy that you came and not others, CEO Qing, there are still a lot of unknown things in this world. You have to be more careful in the future. The strength of that group of people is a lot stronger than me. When a person is about to die, his words are kind. Qingya nodded her head. She accepted Xiao Yi's kindness. Looking at his Xianyuan sword, Xiao Yi asked, "Can you let me use it again?" Qingya didn't think too much. She threw the Xianyuan sword in her hand to Xiao Yi. Xiao Yi caught the sword in his hand and caressed the blade, feeling the call of an old friend and the apology. "This sword has accompanied me for a long time. Only now do I know that there are too many things I am unwilling to part with in this world." Xiao Yi took a deep breath. His gaze became lax. The palm on the blade of the sword began to gradually dissipate, turning into specks of starlight. Xiao Yi slowly closed his eyes, recalling the people he cherished in his mind, flashing through his mind again and again. "Exine E, I'm sorry. I still couldn't do it." The Xianyuan sword fell to the ground. Xiao Yi's body turned into specks of starlight, and along with a light breeze he disappeared. The Xianyuan sword let out a whining sound. The light on the blade of the sword also dimmed. The tough king of a generation fell. No, the celestial emperor of a generation fell. It wasn't that he wasn't strong enough. It was that he offended someone he couldn't afford to offend. Qingya slowly let out a breath, stretched out her hand, and the Xianyuan sword on the ground fell into her hand, then disappeared. Chapter 524. After returning to the bedroom, seeing that Yi Hua was still sleeping soundly, Qingya felt relieved. She quietly took off her clothes, then lightly lied on the bed and leaned on her husband's embrace. Her mood was very complicated, not knowing if what she did was right or wrong. "I'm back," Yi Hua said faintly with his eyes closed. Qingya cried out in surprise. "Yi Hua, you didn't sleep?" "My wife went out in the middle of the night. How can she sleep?" Yi Hua said faintly while hugging Qingya. Without waiting for Qingya to finish, Yi Hua said in a deep voice, "Qingya, there are a lot of things that are not up to you. Maybe the good things that you do are bad things in the eyes of others, but the bad things that you do are good things in the eyes of others." Xiao Yi died. His family would naturally feel pain. But if Xiao Yi didn't die, more people would die. Wouldn't their family feel pain? You just did what you should do. This world has always been like this. It's either you die or I live. Although it is very cruel, this is fate. How would Qingya not know this logic? But it was very difficult to do it, especially when the other party was repenting. She even wanted to let him go. "Yi Hua, I promised Xiao Yi that I would protect his family's safety. You won't blame me, right?" Qingya asked worriedly. "You won't say that I am soft-hearted again, right?" However, this time, Yi Hua didn't reprimand her. He even said, "Leave this matter to me. You can be at ease. Whatever you say is also my promise." "Other people?" Qingya asked. Yi Hua said faintly, "You don't have to care about other people. I want to see what else they want to do." "And I understand. Go to sleep, you are tired too." Qingya was indeed a bit tired, although she didn't move much. She still felt tired both physically and mentally. Yi Hua lightly hugged Qingya. "This is just a small matter." And it made Qingya so tired. "If I were to encounter a situation like Heaven's Mansion, I would probably faint." As for Xiao Yi's family, Yi Hua didn't plan to leave them on Earth. He planned to leave them on Blue Blaze Planet. No one would know them there, and they could start a new life. "I'll let Brett handle this matter. She is very familiar with Blue Blaze Planet." Although it was already late at night, Yi Hua still asked Brett to immediately handle this matter. Xiao Yi died. His family members would most likely be in danger very soon. Qingya, the Supreme Overlord, would never break her promise. Qingya's every action outside represented the Supreme Overlord. After Brett received Yi Hua's order, he didn't have any doubts and immediately went to do it. Right now, the Xiao family was completely silent. Shu Nan and the others were sitting paralyzed in the house, and there wasn't the slightest bit of color on their faces. Xiao Nian was still crying loudly. As the sound of high heels came from the door, everyone in the room became alert. Brett easily broke through the barrier Xiao Yi had set up, and then pushed open the door. Shu Nan looked at this unfamiliar woman and protected Xiao Nian in his arms. "Who are you?" Shu Nan asked coldly. Brett glanced at them and said indifferently, "The person who will take you away." Hearing this, The few of them understood that their husbands would probably never come back. Looking at these crying women, Brett was a little impatient. There was not a single good man. They only knew how to make women cry. Hurry up. Those people are coming. Although Brett wasn't afraid, he didn't want to spoil his honor's plan. Shunan was a rational woman. For the future generations of the Xiao family, she had to leave. Zhang Xian hurriedly woke up Xiao Yin. Mom, where are we going? Xiao Yin rubbed his eyes and asked curiously. Shunan didn't have time to explain. We're going out to play for a few days. But Yin still has to go to school tomorrow. Shunan squatted down and squeezed out a smile. Yin, don't worry. Mummy will apply for leave for you. Okay then, where's father? Xiao Yin looked around and noticed an unfamiliar woman. He sized her up curiously. She was really beautiful. Shunan's heart sank. Dad is still working. He'll be here soon. And don't let Daddy be so busy with work. When Yin grows up, she will help Daddy. Shunan nodded. Daddy will be proud of Yin. Brett's face darkened. If you have anything to say, go over there and say it. Shunan stood up, pulled Xiao Yun's hand and asked, Where are we going? A place you have never been to, Brett said coldly. He looked at the women in the living room and spread his hands. A green light slowly wrapped around everyone, and then disappeared in an instant. However, less than a minute after Brett left, Wu Lu from the space-time branch appeared at the scene. He was just sleeping when he heard the alarm. He saw that Xiao Yi was dead. He immediately lost his sleepiness and hurried over to check the situation. After all, Xiao Yi's strength was not bad. He was a very strong fighter, and there was still some use in keeping him. Looking at the empty villa, Wu Lu frowned deeply. How did they all disappear in an instant? After checking, Wu Lu also left. He let out a deep sigh. Xiao Yi was probably killed by his enemies. Even his wife and children were not spared. How tragic. It seems that the employee's death allowance was saved. He didn't have any extra money to give out. Not long after Wu Lu left, another man arrived. He was none other than Heaven and Earth. Qing Tian walked in the living room and took out a tissue. He wiped his hands with a faint smile on his face. Sigh, what a pity. He was actually killed. Interesting. It seems that I need to recruit some talents. Qing Tian folded the tissue in his hand and placed it on the table. He slowly walked out of the door. No one knew what he was thinking, but it gave off a very strange feeling. On the other side, Brett brought Xiao Yi's family members to Blue Blaze Planet and directly went to look for Shi Tingting. This is his honor's territory. I have to ensure their safety. After all, there are my own people here, so I can be more at ease. If I throw them to some other place, it would be equivalent to letting them fend for themselves. Meanwhile, Shunan and the others' vision turned black. Soon after, they felt as if they had arrived in a sci-fi world. When they raised their heads, there were actually two huge satellites in the sky. The satellites seemed as if they were going to fall at any moment. Shi Tingting hurriedly ran out of the villa and shouted out respectfully, Lord Brett. Shunan and the others couldn't react at all. This Brett was definitely called over by Qingya. However, to have power in this unfamiliar place, just who is this Qingya? And make arrangements for these people and ensure their safety. Brett said faintly. Shi Tingting naturally accepted the order unconditionally. Lord Brett, be at ease. I will definitely make arrangements for them. Brett nodded his head, then disappeared from the spot. He came and left quickly. Shi Tingting still wanted to ask when his honor would come, but he didn't even give her a chance. Shi Tingting let out a deep sigh and looked at the women and children. Chapter 525. Shunan and the others were completely shocked by what they saw. Their minds were in a daze and they did not even know what they were doing. They were being led like puppets. Xiao Yun, on the other hand, hid behind Shunan and looked around curiously at this unfamiliar place. There was surprise in his eyes. He didn't know that his father and mother had left him forever. Perhaps he would only know all of this when he grew up. After Yi Hua, who was in deep sleep, received Brett's report, he didn't say anything and continued to hug onto Qingya as he slept. The next day, the south was shaken once again. After the Tang family, the Xiao family's people all disappeared in a single night. A strange atmosphere pervaded the entire south, and there were even rumors that the group of people had appeared again. Some were even more ridiculous, saying that it was the revenge of the north. However, there are actually people who believe this kind of nonsense. Furthermore, everyone believed that it was done by Voidless Realm. Because Tang family and Xiao family were both families in the north in the past, Voidless Realm decided to make an example out of them. When some clan heads in the north found out about this, they immediately began to browse the forums, saying that the Empress had done well. This kind of trash should be killed, and they, the people of the south, should have a taste of it. As some of the family heads in the north acknowledged it, the south had always thought that this was the Empress' display of power. After all, the south had also participated in forcing the Empress to distribute the longevity fruits in public. In order to show their power, they had done this. The first was to intimidate the south, and the second was to consolidate the position of the north. This Voidless Realm's Empress is so savage, using the lives of two families to do such a thing. But now, the Empress was lying in her husband's arms unhappy. Yihua, I didn't do anything, why are those people targeting me? Donghuang Baiji was very vexed. These people's imagination has already reached a terrifying level. However, when all of these things are linked together, Voidless Realm is indeed very suspicious. Yihua rubbed onto Donghuang Baiji's head. That's because you are a woman, and you are a woman who doesn't have iron and blood methods. Is intimidation the only way? Donghuang Baiji asked gravely. In Her Majesty's heart, if it was something that could be resolved peacefully, she would definitely not take action. And in Yihua's eyes, if it was something that could be resolved peacefully, he would definitely not take action peacefully. Yihua looked at Qinya, who was calmly drinking her tea at the side, and said, after being an empress for so long, do you still not know about this logic? The current Qinya is much more powerful than you. Alright, you two can bully me then. Donghuang Baiji raised her hands and surrendered. Donghuang Baiji also knew what Qinya went to do yesterday night. Doing something like this indeed required a lot of courage, but Qinya still did it. Even Donghuang Baiji started to admire him. One must know that a few months ago, Qinya was only a CEO, not a demoness who kills people without batting an eye. Baiji, actually you don't have to explain anything now. Just let them misunderstand. However, you still need to establish your authority. Yihua slowly stood up and sat beside Qinya, while Qinya took out a teacup and poured a cup of water for her husband. Her husband had given her an idea. The Empress was like a primary school student, sitting upright. How should I establish my might? Let's establish our might through martial arts, Yihua said in a deep voice. I am not going to participate in the martial arts competition. How am I going to establish my prestige? Donghuang Baiji said confusedly. Qinya said with a slight smile. Baiji, to other people, taking down Voidless Realm is an extremely rare opportunity. Recently, the protests in the north are getting more and more intense, and it's not like there aren't any people who want you to step down from your position. You mean the 5 great clans? Do they dare? Donghuang Baiji's tone gradually changed. This is the Empress that Yihua likes. These people, their hearts will be clouded by benefits. Taking a gamble, a bicycle will turn into a motorcycle, and they have the mentality of getting lucky. Yihua took a sip of Voidless Realm's tea. This tea is rather tasty, Donghuang Baiji sneered. Even if the 4 great clans join hands, they still won't be my Voidless Realm's opponent. What if it's the entire north? Qinya looked at Donghuang Baiji and asked. After hearing that, Donghuang Baiji's eyebrows wrinkled. Qinya continued. Perhaps they don't want to use martial arts to overthrow you. And perhaps they only want to use words to make you step down from your position. After all, this longevity fruit belongs to the north, and yet, you allowed the south to participate in it. My dear Empress, what do you intend to do after being attacked by the entire north? Yihua laughed lightly. Right now, I am already cooperating with Qinya, and I am still going to continue to lead the Empress astray. Donghuang Baiji remained silent for a long time, and in the end, she shook her head. I don't know. Yihua and Qinya smiled but didn't say anything. They looked just like a cunning couple. And Donghuang Baiji was just like that innocent little sheep that was scared silly. You too. Oomph. Hurry up and say it, Donghuang Baiji pouted. These two actually dared to tease me. They are simply too evil. Yihua placed down the teacup in his hand, and his gaze flickered with a cold glint. Kill. Qinya seemed to already know Yihua's answer as she sat at the side and drank her tea. Seems like after what happened yesterday, Qinya seemed to have calmed down a lot. In the end, Donghuang Baiji was just an obedient girl. Ever since she inherited the throne, nothing big had happened to her, and she had only been training her Empress aura every day. How could she have done anything like that? Hearing her husband's suggestion, Donghuang Baiji clearly became unnatural. Could it be that other than killing, there is no other way? Qinya, what do you think? Donghuang Baiji looked towards Qinya, feeling that Qinya should be able to give the best suggestion. Qinya let out a breath, then looked at Donghuang Baiji. If they really want to rebel against you, you can only kill them, unless you choose to step down from the throne and give up Voidless Realm to them. Yihua patted onto Qinya's shoulder, expressing that he was very gratified. Our thoughts are finally on the same channel. Right now, we are only lacking the Empress. If that's the case, wouldn't I have become the second Ji family? Donghuang Baiji couldn't help but say. Yihua placed Qinya's slender hand onto his palm and played with it, then said faintly, Ji family kills people without a reason. And you, Donghuang Baiji, are facing a group of people who want you to step down from your position. There is no need for you to pity them. It is time for the world to know the weight of Voidless Realm. At the very least, at this moment, Donghuang Baiji's bloodlust was ignited. Voidless Realm is just too low profile, and low profile makes people think that Voidless Realm is afraid of them. Seeing that Donghuang Baiji nodded her head, a trace of an evil smile appeared on the corner of Yihua's mouth. Alright, let's talk about proper business now. Yihua knocked on the table, and his expression became serious. How could Qinya not know what Yihua was talking about? What happened just now was just a small matter. What happened in bed with Yihua was a big matter. Seeing that her husband became serious, Donghuang Baiji became serious as well. Yihua, you speak. Alright, Qinya has already deeply understood the responsibilities of a wife. Right now, as long as you, Baiji, nod your head, I won't have to run around on both sides anymore. Chapter 526. Qinya spread out her hands helplessly, indicating that she was already convinced by Yihua. Donghuang Baiji didn't expect that Yihua would actually be able to convince Qinya. In the past, the two of them were fighting together, but now things are different. Her husband has already instigated one of his men to defect, and right now, she is the only one left to fight alone. There is basically no chance of winning at all, so I might as well just listen to Yihua. In any case, she had always been thinking that as a wife, she should still satisfy her husband's needs. However, Yihua, after this martial arts competition ends, I will promise you. The Empress slightly lowered her head and said softly. Yihua was overjoyed. Finally, my dream is going to come true. This feels great. Promise me what? Yihua looked at the Empress and asked seriously. Donghuang Baiji rolled her eyes at Yihua and said coquettishly, sleep together with you. After finished speaking, she ran out of the bar shyly. This caused Yihua to laugh out loud happily. Are you happy now? Qinya rolled her eyes at her husband. Yihua's laughter could be counted with one hand. Seems like he is really happy. Yihua hugged onto Qinya. I am really too happy. You are still acting cool in front of your wife again? Qinya poked onto Yihua's forehead, then conveniently lied into her husband's embrace. In this world, only the two of them dared to poke onto Yihua's forehead. In the next 2 months, there will be endless surprises. Yihua kept away his smile and said faintly. Qinya's beautiful eyes flickered with determination. Since I have already done it, then I will continue doing it. In the blink of an eye, 1 month passed by. It was already the end of November, and there was only 1 month left until the martial arts competition. The protests in the north did not have any signs of weakening, and instead, it was becoming more and more intense. Yihua did not care about it, and allowed them to create as much trouble as they want. The more trouble they create, the better. After all, I have to give others hope, right? And what made Yihua surprised was that, recently, Leisure Bar's business had picked up, and at night, the bar was actually still filled with people. This is simply unimaginable. After Yihua asked, he found out that it was all because of the blood demon. It must be said that the power of a handsome guy was still very big. Right now, not only was the blood demon a floor cleaner, he had also learned how to mix drinks. And this kind of handsome bartender come hygienist became very popular in a short while. A lot of girls came to Leisure Bar out of admiration, and they even went on TikTok. Right now, Leisure Bar could be said to be a little popular. If those who came to Long and City for a vacation didn't come to Leisure Bar to look at the handsome guy, then they would really have come in vain. Right now, Blood Devil was doing very well. Aside from his lack of strength, he was no different from usual. It seemed that Blood Devil had chosen to specialize in other skills. He was truly a multifaceted talent. That afternoon, Yihua decided to hold a crayfish feast to repay all of his subordinates for their hard work. Within the lounge of Leisure Bar, the Green and Red brothers were currently setting up the tables. All of the tables were connected together, forming a rectangular shape. Meanwhile, the women were currently gathered together and whispering to each other. Even Qingye and Donghuang Baiji had already blended into the conversation, and were currently discussing about cosmetics that they would not be using at all. This time, there were two new faces. They were the Blood Tribe sisters. They had officially become LV Shu's girlfriends, and it was said that they were planning to get married. On the other hand, Brett seemed to be very unsociable. He was leaning against a corner, and no one knew what he was thinking. Of course the men talked about the big things men should talk about. Lai Gu said gravely, "Ju Tian, if you were to be a coward, you would be able to see the world." Wei Chong nodded his head. "That's right. Look at Brett, he is so pitiful." Yihua leaned against the bar counter and said faintly, "I feel that Blood Devil and Brett are quite compatible." Blood Devil, who was at the side, was startled, and he hurriedly kneeled down. "Thank you, Your Honor, for granting my wish." Hearing that, Ju Tian's eyes immediately became filled with killing intent, scaring Blood Devil to the point that he was trembling. Yihua saw that and said faintly, "Ju Tian, since you don't want to, then just let go and let Brett pursue his own happiness." "Your Honor's words are timely. Bestow Brett to this subordinate." Lai Gu was the first to shout out. Ju Tian suddenly took a step forward. His meaning was very clear. "Try saying that again." "You are just standing in the latrine without taking a shit." Lai Gu was just joking. That Brett is basically not paying attention to me at all. Unknowingly, when Yi Zizi was standing behind Lai Gu, and upon hearing what Lai Gu said, she immediately shouted out towards Brett. "Oh Basin, Lai Gu said that you are a latrine." Lai Gu gnashed his teeth in anger. This little lowly is speaking nonsense again, and affecting the friendship between us. "Your Honor, give me a bit more time, I will definitely give you an explanation." Ju Tian cupped his hands and shouted out lightly. "All right, I will give you a bit more time. I hope that you can cherish this time." "Thank you, Your Honor." And when Qingye and Donghuang Baiji saw Brett, who was hiding at the side, the two walked over and prepared to properly persuade Brett. "Brett." Brett stood straight and shouted out respectfully, "Subordinate pays his respects to the two madams." The two women were speechless towards Yihua's nickname. To actually want his subordinate to call him Your Honor, he is too good at acting cool. In the future, I will have to call him Act Tough King Yi. "Brett, let's sit down and have a chat." Without even thinking, Brett kneeled down and said respectfully, "Madams, subordinate knows the reason why you two came here. Subordinate will definitely not have any relations with Ju Tian." Brett's firmness made Qingye and Donghuang Baiji feel helpless. They basically don't know how to persuade Brett. "Brett, Ju Tian actually came here to beg us before." Qingye pulled Brett up and said attentively. Donghuang Baiji, who was at the side, went into a daze. When did he come here? However, very quickly, Donghuang Baiji understood Qingye's intention. Brett lowered his head and remained silent. Qingye continued, "Although Ju Tian lied to you, and we deeply despise him for this, you need to know that His Honor is also a swindler." The corner of Yihua's mouth, who was not far away, twitched. What Qingye said is right. "Brett, look at me. I was abandoned by Yi Hua for 3 years, and yet, didn't we still reconcile with each other? Although he is full of lies, I am still willing to believe in him. Dong Huang Baiji comforted Brett. However, Yi Hua was very gloomy. You two actually brought me out to talk about this matter. Isn't this a bit too sloppy? That's right, Yi Hua also lied to us about many things, and we have also quarreled with each other before. However, it is precisely because of this that we cherish the present even more. When Qinya thought back to the past, she truly sighed with emotion. Seeing that Brett's gaze was different, the two women stopped talking. Brett, think about it properly. In actuality, there are a lot of white lies. When Yi Hua heard what Qinya said, he agreed with what Qinya said. All of the white lies that I, the Supreme Overlord, have said are all white lies. Isn't it all because of you two foolish women? At the middle hall, Dong Huang Li's petite figure was currently moving a chair that was even taller than herself. Chapter 527. Dong Huang Li said with a look as if she was the boss. I am the boss of the buried love family, and you two are my left and right guards. How can you order the boss around? Yi Hong's mood was very good recently, and he said with a smile. It's precisely because you are the boss. You can just leave this kind of menial work to us left and right guards. Aya, Uncle Green, Uncle Red, you two are so long-winded. Hurry up and move the food. The food delivery is coming soon. Green and Red brothers felt helpless. Little Honor is still as cute as always. Following the departure of the two madams, the women began discussing about the deeper problems. This made Tang Wei and Sun Fong very gloomy, and they were unable to get a word in. Even Zishan was able to speak clearly and logically, and she had already left the group of living widows. Very quickly, the crayfish delivery arrived. The women began getting busy, and the men took the lead and sat at the table. If a wife isn't used to do work, what's the point of having a wife? After the women placed all the food on the table, they slowly sat down. They were very orderly and very well behaved. This made Yi Hua feel very gratified. As expected of my subordinates, their position in the family should be very high. After pouring a cup of wine, Yi Hua stood up. Following that, everyone raised their cups and stood up as well. Any one of the men present would be able to overturn the seas and rivers. Other than the blood demon, any one of the women present would be incomparably beautiful. This was a table full of big shots, and Yi Hua was the big shot among the big shots. Everyone, you have worked hard. Yi Hua swept his gaze across everyone and shouted out gravely, Your Honor, you have worked hard. This group of people simply cooperated well with each other, and they shouted out their slogan very well. Yi Hua nodded his head. Let us shout out our slogan one more time. When this sentence came out, everyone became stupefied. When did we have a slogan? Why didn't we know about it at all? We didn't have a slogan in the past either. The blood demon immediately shouted out, Your honor shall live forever, unify the world. Everyone looked towards the blood demon. To be able to flatter to such an extent, this is also a skill. Qinya and Dong Huang Baiji were both amused by the blood demon. Is this the legendary blood demon that is going to bring disaster to the world? He is actually a bootlicker. Daddy is invincible. Dong Huangli raised her wine cup and shouted out. It seems like His Honor really knows how to speak. His Honor's words are simple and clear. These 3 words are enough to set off His Honor's greatness. Everyone shouted in unison. Papa is invincible. Then they drank it in one gulp. The corner of Yi Hua's mouth twitched slightly, and Qin Yutong's face froze. Just now I wasn't deaf, right? Puff. Everyone realized that they had said the wrong thing just now, and they all spat it out. I, the Supreme Overlord, have actually taken in so many sons and daughters today. Yi Hua was having a headache. Why don't all of my subordinates bring their brains with them? Actually, at the start, Lai Gu was the one who shouted out, and the moment his voice carried a rhythm, everyone followed along and shouted out. In the end, he called out the wrong name. Ha ha ha. Everyone couldn't help but laugh out loud, and Yi Hua shook his head helplessly. The intelligence of my subordinates is worrying. Dong Huangli was simply about to burst into laughter. All right, sit down. Fortunately, there are no outsiders here. Yi Hua said faintly. You guys really know how to call Daddy. It's fine if you call me daddy, but if you call someone else daddy, then don't admit that you are my subordinate, right? You guys are too brainless. Qingye and Donghuang Baiji laughed to the point that tears were coming out of their eyes. My husband's subordinates are truly amusing. However, the atmosphere at the start was rather good. Amidst laughter, everyone was eating crayfish. What was worth noting was that all of the women were peeling crayfish for their men. They were completely copying Yi Hua. This is why like boss like subordinates. Retch. Donghuang Baiji, who was peeling crayfish, suddenly let out a retch. Yi Hua wrinkled his brows and took a look, then asked with concern, "What's wrong?" "Oh, nothing much, I just feel a bit nauseous." Donghuang Baiji smiled, then continued peeling crayfish for her husband and child. However, not long after, Donghuang Baiji let out another retch, then hurriedly covered her retch and ran to the washroom at the back. Donghuang Baiji's actions caused all of the women present to think of something. After waiting for a long time, Donghuang Baiji walked back, and her complexion looked a bit lacking. "Baiji, you can't be pregnant, right?" Qingye asked seriously. Yi Hua didn't react to what Donghuang Baiji meant. In actuality, Donghuang Baiji had a reaction for the past few days. She also knew that she was pregnant, and she wanted to give her husband a surprise. Donghuang Baiji revealed out a light smile, then stretched out her hand and rubbed onto her flat abdomen. "Yi Hua and I are going to have another child." After getting Donghuang Baiji's affirmation, everyone became stupefied. Soon after, everyone stood up, moved their chairs away, then half knelt down and shouted out, "Congratulations, Your Honor! Congratulations, Your Honor! Congratulations, you are going to have a child." Yi Hua felt that his brain was a bit unable to process what was going on. He looked at Donghuang Baiji stupidly, then looked at Donghuang Baiji's abdomen. A faint bloodline aura was being emitted out from Donghuang Baiji's abdomen. "Baiji, you are pregnant?" Yi Hua was extremely shocked. This was too sudden. I wasn't prepared in the slightest. Towards the issue of having children, Yi Hua had always placed a lot of importance on it. He hoped that his bloodline would flourish, the more the better. Donghuang Baiji nodded her head happily. "And we are going to have our second child. This is great." Yi Hua hugged onto Donghuang Baiji and started circling around excitedly. All of Yi Hua's subordinates were also happy for his honor. The more children his honor has, the more stable his power will be. "This is great. Ali will have 2 little brothers." Donghuang Li clapped her hands happily. "In the future, I will be the big sister, and I will be able to bring my little brothers out to have fun." Qingye was also happy for her husband. Back then, when Baiji gave birth to a child, Yi Hua wasn't by her side. This time, Yi Hua can finally be at ease to accompany Baiji. "Today Your Honor is very happy. Give me another serving of crayfish." Everyone. Yi Hua held on to his 2 wives' hands, and was very happy. They are the ones who have contributed greatly to the family. They are the ones who gave birth to my children and continued my bloodline. Right now, Yi Hua really wanted to celebrate with the world, and let everyone feel the joy of his main body. In order to thank his 2 wives, Yi Hua unprecedentedly peeled crayfish for Qingye and Donghuang Baiji to reward them. The crayfish feast ended in this kind of joyous atmosphere. On this night, for the first time, Yi Hua didn't make a move on Donghuang Baiji. He just hugged onto Donghuang Baiji, and talked about some things that happened in the past. This kind of warmth made Donghuang Baiji feel happiness. "I am finally pregnant with my second child." However, in the following month, Yi Hua found out that it wasn't a good thing for 2 women to get pregnant at the same time, because right now, they couldn't even touch each other. Qingye said that she was currently in the late stages of pregnancy, and thus, she shouldn't do that anymore. On the other hand, Donghuang Baiji said that she had just gotten pregnant, and thus, she shouldn't do any intense exercise. "I, the Supreme Overlord, just want to say, is my child that weak? Do you think that he will die just like that? What kind of twisted logic was that?" Chapter 528. As the organizer of this event, Voidless Realm leveled all of Ji family's ruins, and built a temporary residence at the side of Ji family's ruins. Although the temporary residence wasn't a high-end 5-star hotel, the temporary residence was still a tavern. The temporary residence was built with wood, and most of the trees in the surroundings had already been chopped down. A large arena had been constructed in the center of the arena. It was at least the size of 4 basketball courts, and seats were arranged around the arena. Of course, the Empress would definitely be sitting in a different seat. She would be sitting on a separate platform, and there were also seats specially arranged for the winner. Although they were enemies, he still had to put on an act. He couldn't lose his magnanimity. Within Voidless Realm's Empress' personal bedroom, Yihua was currently leaning against a chair and silently smoking a cigarette while looking at the blue sky and white clouds. Of course, there was also the nagging of his 2 wives behind him. Although the martial arts competition had not yet begun, the people of the North and South had already fought a few times. Although there were no casualties, it was still unreasonable. You two should just speak less. It is extremely normal for men to fight each other. Yihua shook his head. To think that you two would want to interfere in this kind of matter, I really have to give it to you. Donghuang Baiji said tenderly. Yihua, go to the balcony and smoke. Qingya and I are both pregnant. Alright, if the 2 of you get pregnant, you will be the boss. Yihua had already experienced it this month. Any random matter could involve the issue of the child. Furthermore, Qingya should be giving birth in another 2 months. Her stomach is already bulging out. Baiji, the 5 great families from the north and the 4 great families from the south have already arrived. Absolute Heaven is one of our own, so he is not counted. The people from the Ying family should also arrive today. Qingya muttered. Even now, there are still people who are standing outside and holding up banners to protest. Just who gave them the guts to do so? Donghuang Baiji rubbed onto her forehead. Southerners only want the longevity fruit, while the northern 4 influential families want the entire voidless realm. That's right. If we were to provoke a fight between the 2 sides, the situation would become even more out of control. Qingya said faintly. Yihua couldn't help but say, the 2 of you are really stupid after being pregnant. Baiji, what you have to do right now is to watch the competition. Then give out the rewards and wait for some people to jump out. In these few days, don't bother about anything, don't do anything. Yihua's suggestion is not bad. We will bide our time for the next few days. Qingya felt that her husband's method was feasible. The reason why they were forcing the Empress like this was definitely because they wanted the Empress to step forward. But the Empress refused to step forward, causing them to be at their wits' end. That's the only way. Now that Donghuang Baiji had a child, she became even more careful. No matter what problem she had, she would always take the child into consideration. Thus, Donghuang Baiji couldn't be so carefree anymore. Yihua extinguished the cigarette but, Baiji, your current task is to let the competition continue as normal until the competition ends. As for the rest, leave it to me. And Yihua, it has been hard on you. Donghuang Baiji felt that if Yihua wasn't by her side, she would be at a loss. It's good that you know that it has been hard on me. I let you guys have your way again. After finished speaking, Yihua walked out of the room. Qingya and Donghuang Baiji looked at each other and smiled. In actuality, it was rather interesting to see Yihua's distressed look. After arriving at another room, Yihua called Zhu Tian and Brett over. When the 2 of them appeared at the same time, Yihua could feel Brett's hostility, and Absolute Heaven's intention to reconcile with Brett. This Absolute Heaven, if he knew this would happen, why did he do it in the beginning? I called you here to ask about something. Brett and Absolute Heaven distanced themselves from each other, then half kneeled onto the ground. Absolute Heaven was helpless as well, and thus half kneeled onto the ground as well. Subordinate pays respect to your honor. Everyone get up. Yihua stretched out his hand and lightly waved. Brett, is there any movement from your side? Did they sneak into the competition? Yihua asked. Reporting to your honor, Qing Tian and the others did not make any movements. Brett's reply caused Yihua to be a bit disappointed. On the contrary, I was hoping that Qing Tian and the others would appear and capture all of them at once. After all, the martial arts competition this time around is an event that will shake the entire North and South. Don't they want to come over and fish up some benefits? Brett continued to keep an eye on them. If there is any big movement, immediately report to me. Yes. Then subordinate will take my leave. Yihua took a look at absolute heaven, seemingly wanting to say, "Don't you have anything to say?" Such a good opportunity. Absolute heaven understood what his honor meant, and he said slowly, "Brett." Absolute heaven. His honor told you to come here to report your mission. Do not be rude in front of his honor. Brett shouted out gravely, not giving absolute heaven any face at all. Absolute heaven was immediately left speechless. After doing such a shameful thing, I don't even have the confidence to speak anymore. Brett, you can leave first. Yihua waved his hand. Thank you, Your Honor. After finished speaking, Brett immediately disappeared. Yihua stood up, then said lightly, "If I were you, I would have directly pushed Brett down just now." Your Honor, forget it, you have already become an indecisive and sickly cat. Tell me about the situation. What are those 4 aristocratic families planning to do? Absolute heaven took a breath, adjusted his state of mind, then said respectfully, "Just like what Your Honor guessed, they are indeed planning to force the emperor to abdicate. Their guts sure are big." Yihua snorted coldly. The 4 aristocratic families are planning to use all of the powers in the north to force the emperor to abdicate. Subordinate believes that they will lose the competition this time around and hand over the greatest harvest to the southern aristocratic families, thereby infuriating the north. Yihua took out a stick of cigarette and lit it. This idea is not bad, this method is feasible. Your Honor, do you need subordinate to make any arrangements? Absolute heaven asked. No need, you just need to do what you are supposed to do. The competition this time around is just a pretense. The process isn't important. The day when the competition ends will be the start of the show. Yihua really wanted that day to come sooner, because some people were already impatient to die. Don't you know that my woman cannot be provoked? I was even able to exterminate such a huge heaven's mansion, let alone this small aristocratic family. Subordinate understands. Go. Yes. What Yihua was thinking about right now was how they would play their cards during the competition that would end a few days later, and how he should play his cards. Of course, he couldn't use a trump card right from the start, because that would be too damaging to other people's confidence. He had to make them mistakenly think that they would win, and only then would they find out that they were just a bunch of useless salted fish. Right now, all of the inns around G family were filled with people, and there was even a 38th parallel. The powers in the north and the powers in the south. Whoever dares to cross the 38th parallel will immediately start fighting with each other. Chen Xuanzong, who was a demon emperor, was currently meeting with a woman, and the woman was Duan family's Empress Duan. Empress Duan, are you trying to drag me into a pit of fire? Chen Xuanzong looked at the woman in front of him. Although the woman was wearing a veil, Chen Xuanzong could still feel the cold aura coming from her. Chapter 529. Hearing Duan Ho's words, Chen Xuanzong laughed. Duan Ho, Chen Xuanzong, will become a family master sooner or later. There is no need for me to seek shortcuts. After laughing, Chen Xuanzong's face tensed up and said softly. Duan Ho frowned, and the face under the veil was a little moved. Chen Xuanzong, I saw that you have a bit of potential. That's why I came to invite you personally. Don't refuse a toast only to drink a forfeit. Duan Ho, I will tell you everything. I will not go against Voidless Realm. If anyone dares to disrespect Voidless Realm, don't blame me for being impolite. Chen Xuanzong wasn't someone to be trifled with. As a demon emperor, he had the dignity of a demon emperor. Knowing that Qingya was with the Empress, Chen Xuanzong naturally wouldn't help others to bully Qingya or Voidless Realm which Qingya was in. As long as Qingya was in trouble, he, Chen Xuanzong, would rush over to save her even if he had to sacrifice his life. Good. Very good. After this matter is settled, no one will be able to save your Chen family. Duan Ho snorted coldly, then turned around and left. This Chen Xuanzong is truly a reckless youngster. He really thinks that he is a rookie and is starting to get arrogant. Chen Xuanzong didn't care about Duan Ho's threat at all, and seemed very calm. After Duan Ho left, Chen Xuanzong stood up and looked towards the Empress's bedroom. He wasn't looking at the Empress, but at the woman that he had always liked, Qingya. Even if Qingya is already pregnant with Long Outyan's child, I will not give up on Qingya. I will use this life to protect Qingya, and not let her suffer any harm. No one is allowed to harm the woman that they like. In a row of inns in the south, in an unremarkable ordinary room, a youngster was currently sitting cross-legged on the bed. Both of his hands were placed on his knees, and were emitting a faint golden light. After a long time, the youngster slowly opened his eyes and muttered, "Seems like I haven't swallowed enough. When will it end?" This youngster was Qi Shuwen, the student who saved the arowana. At that time he still had some thoughts about Tang Wei. However, after the banquet incident, he didn't have the face to pursue her anymore, and focused on swallowing all kinds of fishes in the sea. Moreover, he was doing quite well now. In the entire South, he was considered one of the more outstanding rising stars. This time, he had come to participate in the martial arts competition to train himself. If he could obtain a longevity fruit, that would be the best thing. He had heard that the longevity fruit not only had the effect of extending one's lifespan, but it could also raise one's cultivation to the next level. It was a treasure. Otherwise, why would the entire South be so crazy about it? Dong dong dong. Suddenly, there was a knock on the door. Qi Shuwen smiled and went to open the door. "Brother Qi, how do you feel?" The man standing outside was about the same age as Qi Shuwen. He looked a little rough, with a square face and sideburns. However, when he smiled, he gave off a very kind feeling. Qi Shuwen said with a laugh, "Comrade Xinba, are you teasing me again?" "Haha, Brother Qi really knows how to joke. How could I come here to tease you? I just came to see you." Xianba patted Qi Shuwen's shoulder and grinned, revealing a mouthful of white teeth. Qi Shuwen got to know Xianba at a banquet, and it might be because both of them didn't like that kind of scene. That's why they started chatting together. Furthermore, both of them were newly established families, so it would be good for them to take care of each other in an alliance. The two sat beside the round wooden table, and Qi Shuwen poured a cup of water for Xianba. Xianba had a smile on his face, but in his mind he was having a conversation with an old grandpa. Could it be that this is the rumored old grandpa who always carries around with him? Indeed, this is the case. Even now, Xianba's memory was still fresh in his mind. He spent 10 RMB to buy a jade pendant at the antique market, and suddenly one night, the jade pendant shone brightly, and a person who called himself Crazy Grandpa appeared in his mind. Crazy Grandpa said that he would be able to turn Xianba into an unparalleled expert, and after Xianba became stronger, he would help Crazy Grandpa take revenge. This was simply like the plot of a novel, and Xianba didn't even have time to react. After getting along with Crazy Grandpa for a few years, this Crazy Grandpa was no different from his own grandpa. Furthermore, with the help of Crazy Grandpa, Xianba established his own family and became the family head. However, Crazy Grandpa said that this was just the beginning. "Xianba, you have to properly befriend this little brother in front of you. This person has the protection of a divine dragon, and in the future, he will become a strong ally of yours," Crazy Grandpa said faintly in Xianba's mind. "Crazy Grandpa, even if you didn't say this, I would still befriend Qi Shuwen. It isn't easy to befriend a good friend." Xianba sighed. After establishing his own family, only then did he realize that if there wasn't any benefits involved, there wouldn't be any friends at all. Crazy Grandpa let out a sigh. "Xianba, no matter what you do, you have to be cautious. I have seen too many things like this. Crazy Grandpa, if I have to be cautious even when making friends, it would really be very tiring." Xianba was relatively kind-hearted and pure, and this made Crazy Grandpa feel helpless. This kind of personality is really not easy to mingle with, and it is very easy to be cheated by others. Crazy Grandpa let out a sigh. "Do as you wish. During the martial arts competition this time around, you have to be extra careful. I feel that the drunkard has ulterior motives, and something big is going to happen." "And I understand." After finished speaking, the two of them ended their conversation. Of course, this conversation was only finished while they were drinking tea. "Brother Qi, speaking of which, I am a bit excited. This place used to be the territory of the South's big shots. Xian Ba grinned. He was truly excited, and what he said wasn't a lie. Qi Shuwen appeared to be a bit indifferent as he said, "That's right, the annihilation of Ji family is also a mystery. The water in the south is very deep, Xian Ba, you have to be careful." Hearing such a reminder, Xian Ba expressed that he was very happy. This is what friends look out for each other. Brother Qi, the same goes for you. I heard that the martial arts competition this time around is different, and something might happen. Xian Ba was also a kind person. If other people are good to him, then he will be good to other people. That's right, Voidless Realm's way of doing things is breaking the precedent. I heard that the families and aristocratic families in the north are all making a huge fuss over this. I'm afraid that something might happen. Qi Shuwen was a bit worried. Towards those big shots, the current me is truly powerless. Perhaps, in a few more years, I will be able to sit on the same level as them. Xian Ba drank the tea in one gulp, then said with a smile, Brother Qi, you don't have to worry too much, our South's big shot, Ing family, will be coming today as well. Could it be that Voidless Realm is going to make a move against us? That's true, Ing family is a very powerful existence. Qi Shuwen said with a light smile. Right now, I can only grow wretchedly. I cannot become cannon fodder. Xian Ba suddenly said in a low voice. Actually, being able to see the Empress's face, this trip was not made in vain. You brat. Qi Shuwen patted onto Xian Ba's shoulder with a smile. Chapter 530. Qi Shuwen smiled lightly and said, The Empress of the North is indeed extremely beautiful. I should take a good look at this kind of woman. Look at your disappointed tone. Wait for a few decades when we rise up. At that time, we will stand at the peak and look at the world. How great would that be? Desire appeared in Xian Ba's eyes. He also wanted to obtain supreme power, and make those people who look down on him regret. Every man has ambition. If not, they wouldn't go and establish a family. Xian Ba was like this, and Qi Shuwen was even more so. Alright. This time, let's let the Northerners see our strength. Qi Shuwen's gaze became serious. It is time for me to display my strength in front of the world, and let the entire cultivation world see. There is a small family in the south, and the family head is called Qi Shuwen. Alright. Let's work hard together, and create a new era. The two tightly held onto each other's hands and looked at each other. At this time, there should be a BGM. Confirmed the look in their eyes. Right at this moment, a clamor sounded out from outside. Soon after, the two walked to the balcony outside, and a group of silver-armored warriors could be seen in the distance. They were holding onto a flag, and a big Ing word was printed on the flag. The uniform footsteps gradually became louder, giving off a strong aura. All of the family heads in the south looked at the Ing family that was gradually walking over, and their eyes flickered with excitement. This is the big shot of the south, Ing family. This is the first time that Ing family has appeared in front of the public, and as expected, their aura is extraordinary. Xian Ba looked at Ing family that was not far away, and his expression became stiff. This is the big shot of the south, Ing family? So impressive. That's right. Even the guards around them might be stronger than us. Seeing such a scene, Qi Shuwen immediately felt a sense of defeat, but at the same time, it also motivated him to move forward. One day, I will also be able to enjoy the admiration of everyone like this. Ing family's people quickly stepped into the housing area, and cheers immediately rang out. That excited look on their faces made it seem as if they had seen a strong backing. In actuality, the entire South's family head was becoming younger. After all, those old family heads had all died in Ji family, which caused the South's family head to become younger, and the overall strength of the South's family head was declining. However, these young family heads would also become the mainstay of the South in the near future. It was just that this matter needed time to be polished. That is Ing family's family head. Xian Ba looked at the man who was riding on the beast and muttered. It should be. Qi Shuwen said blankly. The person riding on the flamecloud cheetah was none other than Ing Jingshan. As Ying Jingshan and the four big family heads walked into the tavern, the surrounding small family heads began to clamor. This voidless realm is truly going too far. To actually arrange such a place for our big shots to stay, they are looking down on us too much. That's right, that empress is staying in such a high-class place. And for Ying family to stay in such a place, they are truly hateful. What can we do about this? Voidless Realm is the organizer of this event, and Ying family is only here to cheer us on. This Voidless Realm is truly hateful. My empress is definitely being held hostage. If not, she wouldn't do such a thing. That's right, the empress is so beautiful. How could she possibly do such a thing? Hearing this group of people talking about his fiancée, Ying Kongsher sneered in his heart. You bunch of trash. Are you even qualified to talk about my fiancé behind my back? How reckless. Xian Ba, who was standing on the balcony, asked curiously. That young man should be Ying family's son, right? He looks quite good. Xian Ba didn't know how to describe it. Cold and gloomy, Qi Shuwen said lightly. Xian Ba immediately covered Qi Shuwen's mouth. Lower your voice. Don't let anyone hear it. Otherwise it's over. Qi Shuwen nodded. He didn't think too much just now and just said it casually. However, upon thinking of the consequences, Qi Shuwen's back felt a bit cold. I wonder what kind of crime it is to insult the son of Ying family. Looking at the arrogant look on Ying Kongsher's face, Qi Shuwen said in a low voice, Reincarnation is a skill. That's right, there are some people who are born with a golden stick in their mouth, and we have to go through unremitting hard work in order to be able to obtain the things that are within their reach. Xian Ba let out a sigh. I have trained bitterly in order to obtain my current situation. And other people, they really couldn't be compared. Qi Shuwen patted Xian Ba on the shoulder. Let's work hard, and maybe our children will enjoy the admiration of everyone. That's right. Work hard. Chapter 531. Within Ying Family Inn, there were only ordinary wooden chairs placed in the lobby, and all of the decorations in the lobby were extremely ordinary items. Even the teacups were made of wood. Ying Jingshan sat on the main seat in the middle of the lobby, while the family heads of the four influential families sat below him. This was the first time they saw Ying family's family head, and they were both excited and fearful at the same time. Ying Kongsher stood beside his father and remained silent. The beard under his mouth was stuck to his face, but it was unable to conceal the unique gentleness that he had. Just perform well this time. Ying Jingshan picked up the wooden teacup at the side and drank a mouthful of water, then said faintly, he didn't wish for the southern family to anger that terrifying his honor once again. Yes, the four family heads didn't dare to say anything else. To be able to see Ying family's family head was already an incomparable honor. In actuality, Ying Jingshan also didn't know what his honor meant, because he didn't give any orders regarding this matter. All right, you all can leave now, I'm tired. Ying Jingshan waved his hand. He wasn't interested in talking about anything else, and the four family heads didn't dare to ask anything else either. After the four family heads left, Ying Jingshan said faintly, be clear about your own position. Don't think about anything else. If you dare to anger his honor again, I will definitely kill you. In any case, I killed one myself. Ying Kongsher's heart trembled as he hurriedly said, I understand. It's good that you understand. Ying Jingshan snorted coldly, then walked upstairs. Ying Kongsher pouted his mouth. I'm already here. How can I not go and see my fiancée? Even if she isn't my fiancée now, she was my fiancée in the past. A few months ago, I was also the man who was going to marry the empress. I didn't expect that the wick would explode. Those two damned women. I curse you two to be virgins for your entire life. Damn it, I can't even win against them, yet I'm not allowed to talk about it. After the four family heads left, they returned to their own residence. Why do I feel that Ying family doesn't want to cause trouble? Marshal Saint said curiously. Diao Lang said in a low voice. That's right, right now, Voidless Realm is being suppressed by the entire North. If they were to ally with the North and bring down Voidless Realm, out of the three big powers, only Ying family would be left. Isn't this a great opportunity? Have you all forgotten about the battle between Ying family and Voidless Realm a few months ago? Morongji reminded. He Tian narrowed his eyes and said in a low voice, "Could it be that the Ing family doesn't dare?" Morongji nodded his head. Perhaps Ing family knows that it won't be easy to topple Voidless Realm, and thus, they chose not to participate in this matter. After all, that is Voidless Realm we are talking about. How can it be so easy to topple Voidless Realm? Everyone nodded their heads. This giant's foundation was extremely huge. It wouldn't be easy to topple him. Let's get down to business. The martial sage heaved a sigh of relief, his expression heavy. Upon hearing the martial sage's words, the three family heads revealed nervous expressions. Martial Saint, are you sure that Ji family's seal is an ancient divine artifact? Diaolang asked gravely. The martial saint took a deep breath and said in a low voice, "The three tycoons were appointed by the gods, and the three tycoons were protected by enchantments, and these enchantments were powerful ancient divine weapons. This isn't something that ancient divine weapons can compare to." After pausing for a moment, the martial saint continued, "Ji family's enchantment is still here, which means that the ancient divine weapon is still at a certain place in Ji family. As long as we find the correct location, we will be able to take out the ancient divine weapon. And with the ancient divine weapon, we will be able to replace Ji family and become the new big power." "Is what you said true?" Diaolang asked. "If I didn't have a bit of confidence, I wouldn't have said it. After all, this is a huge matter, and it isn't something that a single person can do. This time, Voidless Realm opening the enchantment is an extremely rare opportunity." Greed flickered within the martial saint's eyes. Who doesn't want to become a big power? Especially after seeing Ing family's glory today, I yearn for it even more. Obtaining an ancient divine weapon will allow one to become an aristocratic family. And obtaining an ancient divine weapon, that would allow one to become a big power. He Tian laughed lightly. If the four of us obtain the ancient divine weapon, how are we going to split it? Split? Since our four clans have done such a thing, there is no need to talk about division. Only by the four of us as one will we be able to tide through this crisis together. After all, if we are together, we will have four ancient godly items, the martial sage said calmly. However, Morongji raised a question. If Voidless Realm and Ing family were to attack us at the same time, how are we supposed to deal with them? After all, Voidless Realm has a way to open this barrier. So, we can only gamble that they won't do this. The martial sage swept his gaze over the three of them. Soon after, Yihua continued speaking. After this year's martial arts competition, whether or not Voidless Realm will still be a problem. That northern aristocratic family wishes for the Empress to be kicked off the stage. And if they succeed, what reason would Voidless Realm have to come and look for trouble with us? To think that the northern aristocratic family can open this barrier, that's more like a dream. Everyone nodded their heads upon hearing what Yihua said. However, the risk that Yihua said was too big. This was practically gambling with one's life. If one won the gamble, one would become invincible, and if one lost the gamble, he would die a tragic death. Seeing that the three of them were hesitating, the martial sage shook his head. They were too used to such a comfortable life. Even their drive had been worn down. Only the brave can become the best. The martial sage shouted out in a low voice. I need to awaken the drive in their hearts. I can't continue to be depressed like this. What a good opportunity this is. Seems like you all have lost your bravery in the past, and are living a comfortable life right now. Forget it. There was nothing much to say to the martial sage. It is impossible for me to do this matter by myself. Only by working together will this matter be able to succeed. Diaolang's gaze tensed up, then said faintly, I'm in. I'm in as well. Etian said immediately. Morongji asked calmly, I want to ask after this matter is over, who among the four of us will be the family master of this big power? The martial sage stood up, then looked at the three of them and said, 1 round every 4 years. We will take turns. The three of them thought to themselves, is this kind of decision feasible or not? 1 round every 4 years, which means that we will only be the family master once every 12 years. A vicious look appeared in the martial sage's eyes. There is another way. After the matter is settled, the four of us will have a duel. The one who survives in the end will be the family master of the big power. Hearing such a suggestion, the other 3 family masters inhaled a mouthful of cold air. After all, no one wants to be the family master of the big power every 12 years. If one wants to be the family master of the big power, then one wants to be the family master of the big power forever. Murongji said gravely, I agree with the latter. I agree as well. I agree as well. From the looks of it, the 4 family masters didn't want to take turns and agreed with the final method. All right then. Tonight, we will go and search for ancient godly equipment. If I remember correctly, Family Master Diao, your ancient godly equipment should be able to sense some special existences. Chapter 532. However, this ancient godly item was still of little value. It was not an attack-type item, but a support-type item. The martial saint summoned out his ancient godly item. This was a sharp arrow, and it was no different from an ordinary iron sword. It was able to confuse enemies, and no one would have expected that such a sharp arrow would be an ancient godly item. When the arrow appeared, the blue jade immediately emitted a faint glow, becoming weaker and stronger as it got closer. The martial sage put away his ancient godly item and said with a light smile, Everyone saw it, right? Everyone nodded. As long as they had this piece of blue jade, finding the ancient divine weapon shouldn't be a problem. He Tian suddenly asked, Look, why is the blue jade still lit up? Diaolang didn't notice it at first, but after hearing He Tian's shout, he immediately looked at the blue jade in his hand. It was indeed emitting a faint blue light. What's going on? Diaolang was confused. Murongji exclaimed, Could it be nearby? These words immediately made the few of them excited. Could it really be nearby? Wasn't it effortless to get it? Diaolang was so excited that he stood up and looked at the blue jade in his hands. Look, the light is getting brighter and brighter. He Tian exclaimed. His face was flushed red, showing just how excited he was. The blue jade in Diaolang's hand grew brighter and brighter, until it illuminated the entire hall. Ah! Diaolang cried out in pain, and he immediately threw away the blue jade in his hand. His palm was actually injured by his own ancient godly item. That was impossible. This was not an attack-type ancient godly item at all. Just the light it emitted had actually burned his hand. Diaolang, what is going on? Martial Sage hastily asked. He Tian and Murongji recovered from their excitement and stared at the floating blue jade. The blue light it was emitting was a little dazzling. I also don't know. This has never happened before. Diaolang exclaimed. Murongji muttered. Just now, when this piece of blue jade faced the ancient godly item, it only emitted a faint light. But now it was so bright. This place should be where the ancient divine weapon is hidden. Diaolang shook his head. No. Even if it's an ancient divine artifact, it wouldn't light up like this. There should be something even more terrifying. Bang! A crisp sound suddenly rang out. The floating blue jade shattered just like that. The 4 of them were dumbfounded as they looked at the scattered fragments on the ground. This was an ancient godly item. How could it shatter so easily? Impossible. Especially Diaolang, his face was filled with shock. This was his primordial godly item. Without the ancient godly item, he wouldn't be able to be the patriarch of an aristocratic family anymore. This wasn't a problem of finding the ancient god artifact, but of not being able to keep their position as aristocratic families. An existence that is even more terrifying. The martial saint said in a low voice, and his eyes were flickering with fanaticism. An existence that is even more terrifying than an ancient godly equipment. What would that be? The martial saint was not the only one who felt this way. He Tian and Murongji were the same. If they could get their hands on something even more powerful than an ancient divine weapon, the winner was nothing. What does Voidless Realm count as? And this thing was not far from them. This thought was true. The rings on Qingye and Donghuang Baiji's hands, as well as the necklace on Donghuang Li's wrist. How could this primordial godly item withstand this kind of aura? It did not even last for a moment before it exploded. What do we do now? Is there any way to find the exact location of the primordial godly item? He Tian asked anxiously. He wished that he could obtain the primordial godly item right now and letting family and voidless realm take a look at it. The entire cultivation world will kneel down and tremble under my feet, ha 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 ha. The martial saint said gravely. Everyone try sensing it and see if it is useful or not. Only when one's strength reached a certain realm would one be able to sense the primordial godly item. We are still too weak. We are completely unable to sense anything at all. Not even a single strand of hair. Diao Lang was in despair. This is the same as suffering a double loss. I didn't find the primordial godly item, I didn't find that terrifying thing, and my primordial godly item shattered. It was broken. Just like my heart, it shattered. Diao Lang sat on the wooden chair with a painful look on his face. A second ago he was still excited, but the next second, he was crushed by the cruel reality. It's all your fault. After resting for a very long time, Diao Lang was still unable to take it anymore. Immediately he stood up and started cursing. He Tian and Morongji hurriedly said, "We didn't ask you to take it out, the martial saint asked you to take it out." As expected, when something happens, all kinds of excuses are made. "Martial saint, compensate me." Diao Lang let out a shrill roar. This matter concerns the entire Diao family. If Ying family were to find out about this, the Diao family's title as an aristocratic family would be removed, and the Diao family would be reduced to a third-rate family. This was a fact that Diao Lang couldn't accept. However, why is his tone sounding like that of a 3-year-old child? It's as if someone broke his thing, and then shouted for him to compensate, and the only thing missing was to call his parents over to help him. The martial saint didn't know how to reply to Diao Lang. Encountering something like this is indeed very hurtful. No matter how useless the primordial godly item is, it is still an primordial godly item, and it is one of the standards of an aristocratic family. Diao Lang calmed down. The martial saint could only calm Diao Lang down first, and not let him do anything extreme. If this matter were to be reported to Ying family, he would be done for. Diao Lang let out a wild laugh. "Martial saint, how am I supposed to calm down? Right now, my primordial godly item is gone. Not yours. If you have the guts, you can shatter it as well." Diao Lang, even if I wanted to, I wouldn't be able to shatter it. The martial saint sighed helplessly. However, what the martial saint said was too much of a blow to Diao Lang. Diao Lang was angered to the point that he directly punched out. Upon seeing that, He Tian and Morongji immediately pulled the furious Diao Lang away. "It really isn't suitable for us to fight here. And Ying family is not far away from us. After all, it is normal for us to fight with the north, but for the south to have internal strife, and furthermore, it is an aristocratic family. It would be very shameful if word of it were to spread out. Diao Lang, don't get agitated. Only the 3 of us know about this matter. No one else knows about it." The martial saint immediately persuaded. Who knows what this Diao Lang would do if he is angered? Hearing what the martial saint said, Diao Lang calmed down a bit. As long as they don't say anything, no one else will know about this matter. And I am still one of the 4 aristocratic families in the south. However, the current Diao Lang was completely unaware that his weakness had already been found out by them. And in the future, he might even be threatened by them. Seeing that Diao Lang calmed down a bit, He Tian and Morongji loosened their grip on Diao Lang. The martial saint let out a breath, then said gravely, "We have to find the primordial godly item. And we also have to find the primordial godly item that is even more powerful than the primordial godly item." "That's right, we only have 3 days left. We have to think of a way to find it." He Tian also wanted to obtain the primordial item that was even more powerful than the primordial godly item. Right now, what else could Diao Lang do? Chapter 533. Night fell. Qi Shuwen sat cross-legged on the bed and breathed deeply. After that he opened his eyes. Sighing, Qi Shuwen got up and poured himself a cup of water. After that he walked to the balcony. "The competition will begin tomorrow. I have to make thorough preparations." Just as Qi Shuwen was pondering, he suddenly saw 4 black figures scuttling out and flying towards the forest not far away. Four black figures to appear so late at night. Qi Shuwen was a little suspicious. After struggling in his heart, Qi Shuwen decided to follow them to see what was going on. Humans are curious, and Qi Shuwen was no exception. Qi Shuwen sealed his aura and followed behind them. Because he did not know who they were, he was extremely careful. These four figures were the martial sage and the others. They had snuck out while everyone was asleep to search for the ancient god artifact. Even though they did not know where to start, they still wanted to get to the bottom of it. They were unwilling, especially Diaolang, who was even more unwilling. The four people wearing black clothes landed on the ground. Diaolang asked in a low voice, "How do we find it?" Martial Sage summoned his ancient godly tool and said indifferently, "We can only try our luck. Let's hope that there is a reaction between ancient godly tools and ancient godly tools. He Tian Morongji, take out your ancient godly tools and try it out." The two of them nodded their heads and summoned their ancient godly tools at the same time. The jade flute in He Tian's hand was crystal clear. It should be a musical attack. In Morongji's hand was a long orange whip. There were tiny thorns on the whip. However, this whip was different from the others. It was a little thick. Coupled with the tiny thorns, it looked a little interesting. Qi Shuwen, who was hiding far away, was startled. Although the aura emitted by the weapon was weak, Qi Shuwen could still feel it. Is this an ancient godly tool? As expected, it is so powerful. These four should be the patriarchs of the four great families in the south. What are they doing in this dark forest instead of sleeping in the middle of the night? Let's take a look first. If they do something bad later on, I will have to kill them to silence them. 3 ancient godly tools floated in the air. Martial Sage and the others carefully sensed the information transmitted by the ancient godly tools. Unfortunately, they did not discover anything. Let's walk around and take a look. Martial Sage said in a low voice. If this move was useless, they would not be able to find it. No one said anything. They could only try their luck. Qi Shuwen, who was at the back, followed them sneakily, and his heartbeat quickened a bit, thinking to himself that these 4 people might be looking for something. Something that the 4 great family patriarchs were searching for was definitely not something ordinary. However, on the treetop, there was a little cat squatting, its eyes emitting traces of cold light. Absolute Heaven was in charge of the security issue this time, ensuring that everything would end smoothly. After squatting for a few nights, there were no problems, but on this night, there was still a problem. The people who came were from the 4 great aristocratic families of the south, and behind them was a sneaky little guy who seemed to be looking for something. Zhu Tian didn't report this matter to Yi Hua. After all, it was already very late, and his honor should have already gone to sleep. Furthermore, this matter wasn't a big deal. However, what made Zhu Tian curious was what they were looking for. They even used an ancient godly item to search for it. Interesting. Zhu Tian slowly closed his eyes, and his consciousness immediately enveloped the entire Ji family. Sure enough, there was a discovery. There was only one thing that wasn't in the house. From the looks of it, they should be looking for this item. Absolute Heaven's figure disappeared from the treetops, reappearing beneath a large tree. It should be hidden beneath this large tree. Zhu Tian raised his hand and looked at his claws, then lightly scratched the ground. Immediately mud stuck onto his claws. Zhu Tian's cat face had a look of disgust, seemingly about to vomit. Using both of his claws, Zhu Tian immediately used the dog paddle style. Needless to say, his speed was quite fast. 100 meters underground, Zhu Tian finally obtained the ancient godly item. Zhu Tian immediately drilled out from the ground and stood on the treetop. Zhu Tian's spotlessly white fur was covered with mud, and his fur was black and yellow. Zhu Tian couldn't help but tremble, then looked towards the copper plate in his hand. This should be the item that is supporting the entire Ji family's barrier. However, this copper plate is a bit more powerful than the one in our hands. However, this copper plate is only used to set up a barrier, and has no other use. Suddenly, Zhu Tian seemed to have thought of something good, and he had no choice but to contact his honor. Yi Hua was currently lying down and sleeping, just that. The person beside him wasn't his 2 wives, but Dong Huangli. It wasn't easy for Dong Huangli to finally be able to sleep together with her father, and right now, Dong Huangli was lying on her father's chest and sleeping soundly. What's wrong? Yihua was woken up by Zhu Tian, and his tone was a bit unkind. Your Honor, subordinate has disturbed your Honor's rest. I hope that you can forgive me. You have already disturbed your Honor. Just say it. Yihua slowly opened his eyes, then looked at his daughter who was lying on his chest and the saliva that was at the corner of Donghuang Li's mouth. Donghuang Baiji didn't have the experience of drooling, so why did Ali have it? Who did she inherit it from? Hee, how can I possibly drool when I am sleeping? That is definitely impossible. Zhu Tian reported the matter to Yihua, and after listening to it, Yihua went into deep thought. They are looking for Ji family's barrier. What is it for? Your Honor, Voidless Realm and Ying family both have similar barriers. Based on this, wouldn't the person who obtains the barrier be able to become a big shot? Zhu Tian speculated. That is a bit possible. If an ancient godly item is the standard of an aristocratic family, then a barrier might be the standard of a big shot. Your Honor, the barrier is in my hands. How should I deal with it? Zhu Tian asked respectfully. Yihua went into deep thought for a while, then said coldly, this time, I am afraid that half of the people in the north will be killed by Baiji, and the entire cultivation world will most likely fall into a depressed state. Since my initial goal has been achieved, it is time for me to nurture a new surprise. A new surprise? Zhu Tian didn't understand what his honor meant, and he was still a bit puzzled. That's right, didn't you say that there is a sneaky youngster behind you? Give it to him. After hearing what Yihua said, Zhu Tian immediately understood. Subordinate obeys. Also, in the future, you can make your own decisions when it comes to matters like this. Don't disturb me at night. Yihua instructed gravely. Subordinates have to make their own decisions, and shouldn't come and ask me about everything. Zhu Tian said guiltily. Subordinate is foolish. You are foolish enough. Yihua said faintly, then cut off the connection. Zhu Tian knew what his honor meant by foolish. I am indeed foolish when it comes to Brett. Letting out a breath, Zhu Tian looked at the copper plate in his claw, then lightly rubbed the button on the copper plate. All of a sudden, the barrier that was enveloping Ji family's sky began disappearing, and the spiritual energy fluctuation caused by the barrier was a bit big. Chapter 534. Right now, Qi Shuwen was also looking at the starry sky. That layer of blue barrier was currently slowly disintegrating, and it was very beautiful. At the same time that the barrier disappeared, it brought along a very strong spiritual pressure that shook the entire Ji family. A light sound rang out. Qi Shuwen wrinkled his brows. Looking at the copper plate that suddenly appeared beside his feet, he picked it up curiously. After that, he did not stay any longer and returned. The commotion was too big. People will definitely come later. The martial sage and the others also realized this and returned reluctantly. At this moment, Donghuang Baiji woke up from her sleep and flew towards the sky, while wearing a set of pajamas. At the same time, Ying Jingshan and Ying Kongshi also flew towards the sky. Meanwhile, Yihua, who was currently holding on to his daughter who was currently rubbing her eyes, stood beside the window and looked at the few people in the sky. Your Majesty. With a smile on his face, Ying Jingshan cupped his hands as if he saw an old acquaintance. There was no blood feud between them at all. Ying Kongshi, who was at the back, gulped down his saliva. The Empress came out in a hurry, and she was only wearing a set of light silk pajamas. That arrogant figure of hers made everyone exclaim in admiration. Especially that beautiful face of hers. It was truly indescribable. This woman was originally mine, and she was even going to have fun under my body. Just thinking about it makes me excited. The people from the north and south were all shaken and looked towards the sky. They felt that the broken barrier wasn't even as beautiful as the Empress. The Empress's figure was simply too beautiful. Just by taking a look at her figure, they already shamefully felt respect for her. Donghuang Baiji responded, then no longer paid attention to Ying Jingshan. Your Majesty, I'm afraid that the barrier protecting Ji family has been taken away by someone. Ying Jingshan stood in the sky with his hands behind his back. He did not seem to be angry at all, because he didn't dare to be angry. Donghuang Baiji nodded her head. The barrier has been taken away by someone, I'm afraid that an incident is going to happen. This empty big shot position is something that everyone covets. However, I feel that this matter is nothing to be afraid of. What do you think, Your Majesty? Jingshan laughed lightly. He wasn't worried at all. With the Supreme Overlord backing him up, what is there to be afraid of about the barrier being stolen? Even if a deity descends to the mortal world, there is no need to be nervous at all. Donghuang Baiji snorted. Of course. After saying so, she disappeared into the air. Everyone felt a wave of pity. They had already been here for a few days, and it wasn't easy for them to see the Empress's figure, but it was gone in less than a minute. They still hadn't had their fill yet. Kongsher, who was at the back, seemed like he wanted to call out to Donghuang Baiji. However, he was interrupted by Jingshan's gaze. Kongsher felt that it was a mistake for me to call my son out this time. At home, my son had agreed to my son's request, but the moment I came here, my son changed his mind. What are you looking at? Go back. Jingshan shouted. Following the disappearance of the two giants, everyone began to discuss what was going on with the disappearing barrier. At this time, Qi Shuwen, who had rushed back, stood together with Xian Ba. They had just witnessed the Empress's figure together, and couldn't calm down for a long time. I really have to thank the barrier for breaking. Otherwise, I wouldn't be able to see Her Majesty in her pajamas. She's really beautiful. She's so beautiful that I can't help but feel intoxicated. Xian Ba sighed again and again. Qi Shuwen, who was at the side, nodded his head, expressing his agreement. The Empress's figure was indeed incomparably beautiful, and that faintly discernible temperament was even more astonishing. This kind of woman could only be found in the heavens. No, even in the heavens, this kind of woman wouldn't exist. Her beauty caused people to suffocate, and even their breathing became hurried. Xian Ba shook his head. It was better for him to not think about these unrealistic things. It would be fine as long as his eyes were satisfied. Brother Qi, where did you go earlier? I went to the toilet. Qi Shuwen said with a light smile. Sleep early. The martial arts competition will begin tomorrow. Good luck. And you too, good luck. The two of them walked towards their own room one after another. Qi Shuwen closed the door, and even used his spiritual qi to reinforce the door. Soon after, Qi Shuwen took out the copper plate from his pocket. His gaze was filled with doubt. This thing is so strange. How did it end up beside my feet? Qi Shuwen held the copper plate in his hand, and slowly inserted his spiritual qi into it. Pooh! The moment he inserted his spiritual qi into the copper plate, Qi Shuwen felt a powerful pressure existing within the copper plate. In an instant, he suffered from a backlash and spurted out a mouthful of blood. However, Qi Shuwen didn't go and treat his wound. Instead, he looked at the copper plate in his hand with an excited expression. Disbelief. This is simply even more powerful than the ancient godly item in those patriarchs' hands. What exactly is this thing? Could it be that the thing that they were looking for was coincidentally obtained by me? That is very likely to be the case. A great responsibility has been bestowed upon me by the heavens. I, Qi Shuwen, finally have a day where I can make a name for myself. Meow! A cat's cry gave Qi Shuwen a fright. He immediately kept the copper plate, then looked towards the roof beam. A cat with a strange fur color could be seen standing there. Qi Shuwen let out a breath of relief. I didn't expect that I would be frightened by a cat. This is truly embarrassing. Not paying any attention to the cat on the roof beam, Qi Shuwen took out the copper plate again and observed. Meanwhile, on the other side, the patriarchs of the South's 4 influential families all had miserable expressions on their faces. Especially Diaolang, his final hope was shattered. Seems like someone snatched the ancient godly item before us. Martial Saint said gravely. Morongji nodded his head. That's right. If not, it is impossible for the barrier to disappear just like that. What a pity. In the end, someone snatched the ancient godly item before us. Right now, we should be the only ones who know about it. He Tian shouted out gravely. Suddenly, the three of them looked towards Diaolang at the same time, and thought of a very serious question. What if Diaolang's ancient godly item didn't break, and it was just a facade that he intentionally broke? Then he secretly sent people to retrieve the ancient godly item, or perhaps even an even more terrifying existence. And all along, he had been acting. What a vicious man. What are you all looking at me for? Diao Lang questioned coldly. Murongji's gaze locked onto Diao Lang as he questioned. Diao Lang, where is your ancient godly item? Murong, what do you mean by this? Diao Lang shouted out angrily. You still have the cheek to say that? Wasn't it your own ancient godly item that broke? Murongji sneered. Diao Lang, it seems like the three of us have been deceived by you. Your ancient godly item didn't break at all, and then you secretly sent people to retrieve it, while you were acting with us. Marshal Saint and He Tian's gaze changed, and they even felt like they were going to make a move on Diao Lang. Snatching someone's treasure is equivalent to snatching someone's wife and daughter. After hearing what Murongji said, Diao Lang went into a daze for a moment. Soon after, Diao Lang laughed out loudly. The three of you actually doubted me. Who am I supposed to look for when my ancient godly item broke? Marshal Saint's face was gloomy as he shouted out eerily. Diao Lang, if you hand it over right now, we will let bygones be bygones. If you don't hand it over right now, don't blame us for being impolite. The jade flute in He Tian's hand had already appeared, and Marshal Saint's iron arrow was floating beside He Tian's ear as well. You're tuning into the Echoes of the Heart YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.